Across the UK, online and on DAB.
It's a new frontier in broadcasting. The Two Mics on Talk Radio.
We'll get you talking.
Good afternoon, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry. You're listening to the Two Mics on talkRADIO. It's all about fire and fury today as President Trump ratchets up the rhetoric against Kim Jong-un and North Korea. We'll be talking to military strategist Colonel Richard Kemp about where it can all end up. Also, we'll be finding out why astronomers are getting excited about some newly discovered planets. And Bill Oddie is joining us later on to tell us all about his garden. You can tweet us at the Two Mics, at talkRADIO, and you can call us, of course, on 0344 499 1000. Coming up later on in the show, it's listography as well, where you get to suggest a topic that we can drone on about for 10 minutes. You're listening to the Two Mics right here on Talk Radio.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
We are the Two Mics. This is Talk Radio, and it's time to say a very, very good afternoon to Mr. Mike Parry. Very good afternoon to you, Mr. Parry.
And a very good afternoon to you, Mike. And I have to ask first off, because there have been a lot of inquiries come my way.
Oh, yeah.
How did the birthday celebration go
Very
last
well,
night?
actually. Very well indeed, although the weather was absolutely atrocious,
Shocking,
as
wasn't
you
it?
might remember. I mean, I left you on the steps of Talk Radio Towers yesterday afternoon,
you did.
and you trundled off to the station. You must have got soaked, I presume, walking there, did you?
Yeah, but it doesn't bother me, you see. But as you will notice, I didn't have a coat on because when it rains, I take my coat off and I put it in my plastic bag.
I see.
Put it in my bag because it's much more difficult to dry a coat than it is to dry a shirt. So my basis is walking to the station.
Why don't you wear a coat which is, in fact, waterproof?
Well, it still soaks into it and it still drips water.
Yes.
Whereas if you wear a cotton shirt, which I was wearing yesterday, and I've just had my hair cut, so there's hardly any hair on the top of my head.
That's true. There's hardly any hair on the top of your head, whether you've had it cut or not.
Don't be ridiculous. What I found was that if I'd been wearing a hat, water would have been running down my neck.
Yes.
Had I been wearing a coat,
what about,
water
you know
would
what I
have
see
been
a lot of
dripping.
people wearing in London this summer
Yeah.
is these kind of those transparent ponchos that you can wear. We've got a hood.
Transparent poncho?
Yeah,
What do you think I
transparent
am?
poncho.
Yeah, you mean the sort of things they hand out at Wimbledon?
Yeah, that kind of thing, yeah.
Rubbish.
It's
I'm
a perfectly
not
good
into
thing
that.
to wear. It keeps your clothes dry,
No.
keeps you arriving at your destination without looking like a drowned rat.
No, my shirt got wet, but that doesn't matter because by the time I got home it was dry again. So it really doesn't bother me,
Really?
and that is the way to do it. You should,
Okay.
When it rains, take your coat off. Obviously, that's the best thing
Well,
to
as
do.
a result of the fact that it rained, you see, I then took a car over to where the restaurant was, and it's in the walkie-talkie building, a place called the Darwin Brasserie. The problem is there's about 8 different entrances to this building, so I got quite wet, as it turned out, walking around trying to find the right entrance. You had to go through security to get into the lift.
Didn't you pre-prepare yourself for the right entrance? Didn't you look on your app or something?
Well, no, I had the postcode, the cab driver dropped me off. I said, "Do you know where the entrance is to the Sky Garden?"
Yeah.
He said, "I'm not sure. I think it might be there."
Yeah, that's not much good.
So we went into the first entrance and it wasn't there, and I had to walk around the building. Anyway, that was no big deal.
Yeah.
But beautiful view, even though it was a horrible day.
Yes, I saw some pictures you put out.
sent out
Looked
a
like you
couple
were
of
in
pictures.
prison, actually.
In prison.
This sort of
What a very
grate
high-
in front of the window.
Very high-rise prison.
Yeah.
It's 37 floors,
37
right?
floors, not bad.
Very nice cocktail bar, a couple of cocktails, and then
What
the
sort of
brewed.
cocktails?
I had a martini to start off with.
Dry?
Very dry, a vodka martini, with a new vodka, actually, which was Polish. I've forgotten the name of it.
Remember once in New York when Brian Vine, the doyen,
Self-proclaimed.
self-proclaimed doyen, went out and had a lunchtime of cocktails with some big shaker and mover from Wall Street. When he came back...
Mover and shaker, you mean?
Mover and shaker. We had to get out that tape that you normally tape up boxes with and tape him to his seat.
What?
We had to tape him to his seat.
Why?
He'd gone mad. He'd gone completely mad.
Well, why are you asking me if I remember it? I wasn't working with you then.
No, well, I might have told you the story before.
Ah.
Anyway,
Oh,
so...
no, you never told me that story.
No, really, yeah. We had to. He started chasing all the women in the office, but I mean, lecherously.
What, because he was drunk?
Yeah, I mean, violently
What,
drunk.
so you had to tape him to the chair?
His chairs were on the armrest, and we had to hold him down, and Phil Finn had to get the tape and wrap it around his arm and the...
Why did you just send him home?
Well, because he wouldn't have gone. He was in a... He had gone mad on
rampant.
drink. Gone mad on very
bizarre.
strong drink. Yeah.
How bizarre.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had a very nice meal. I had
What'd you have?
I had a piece of chicken. In it was a kind of chicken Milanese. If you can imagine. It's sort of in batter. With some very nice sort of herb butter on the top of it.
Bit like a sort of KFC chicken burger batter.
Not really, no.
No.
It's slightly better than that.
Okay.
The kids had a burger each, which was very good.
Lovely.
Had some crab to start with.
The crab.
I had a bit of carpaccio of tuna fish as well.
Oh, yeah?
Which is raw, of course.
Not sure. Like
Very
that,
nice, pink.
Yeah.
Pink
I like
and
tuna.
raw.
Like tuna. Yeah.
Yeah,
like
well, it
tuna.
didn't come out of a tin.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know, it was actual real tuna.
Yeah, well, I like proper tuna that's been processed properly.
Proper tuna from a tin.
In a tin. That's right.
That's what you like.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay, and then the kids had a couple of nice desserts. I had some. I had a taste for Zambuca afterwards as well.
Oh, okay.
So it was all in all a very enjoyable evening. Rather expensive, I have to say.
Yeah, well, don't moan about that. It's your birthday. You shouldn't be moaning about that.
I'm not moaning.
Money you are.
I'm not moaning about it. I'm just saying it was quite an expensive evening. Some people would say, and even one of my kids said, it seems a bit unfair that you have to pay for your own birthday dinner.
Well, who else is going to pay for it?
Well, no one.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
My daughter did offer to buy it, but she would have put it on my credit card, which I pay.
Well, exactly, yeah. So
there wasn't much point, really.
No, it was a nice gesture, never the same.
Very nice.
Now then.
And then the younger contingent went home, and myself and my older daughter went out for some more cocktails.
Right, okay.
Very nice place just by London Bridge.
Well, I noticed that, you were still messaging at 1 o'clock this morning, so clearly you were very lively.
Yeah, very lively.
Now, whilst you were doing all that in the safe enclaves of a London restaurant, tension was building up on the Korean peninsula.
That's right, yeah. The Supreme Leader is getting quite worked up, isn't he?
He is getting quite worked up. Because
we're going to talk to Colonel Richard Kemp shortly.
I like the Colonel.
Who's a top military strategist.
Top guy. And the Supreme Military Leader, I don't think, likes the fact that, unlike former US presidents, the Donald doesn't necessarily reply in diplomatic language. He replies in language which only old Nutsville with the short hair will understand.
Shall we have a listen to what the Donald has been saying?
Yes.
I heard a story that he went there and he asked for a picture to be put up in his office there. And he said, the way I want this picture to be put up, it's got to be with 2 screws in the wall, 8 centimeters apart. That's how it's got to be, okay? That's how I want it.
That, of course, is not the Donald, actually. It is John Coleshaw, who was here yesterday. So many people have listened back to the podcast and listened to the audio that we put out. It's what a brilliant impersonator he is.
It's the most brilliant impersonation of the Donald, of President Donald Trump. And
the story he was telling was a story from Turnberry, which, of course, the Donald now owns, where he wanted to have a picture supposedly put up in the room with 2 screws, and exactly as he just described it. And then because the guy didn't do it, he fired him.
That's right, he fired him. And
You're fired.
I'm not a one-screw guy.
I know. That's unbelievable. Right, But anyway, yes, I mean, the fearless Supreme Leader, as he's called, is being very, very sort of handy with his diplomacy, I suppose you might say.
Yeah.
And as a lot of people are remarking, obviously it's very difficult to deal with somebody who's so irrational and bonkers mad.
Yes.
And they're not talking about Kim Jong-un.
No.
They're talking about Donald Trump.
Yeah, I know. Well, what they're saying is the most popular cartoon at the moment is of, a madman is going to cause Third World War and blow up the globe.
Yes.
And then they show a picture of old Kim Jong-un and the Donald, and you can't tell one from the other.
No, exactly right.
That's what the cartoons are doing at the moment.
Well, the bizarre thing that's going on at the moment, and we'll have to ask Colonel Richard Kemp about this, is that basically North Korea says it will have a fully developed plan for striking Guam, which is, of course, down there in that part of the world, pretty much an American-occupied territory, isn't it?
Yes.
But they say they've got intermediate-range missiles.
Yes.
But the plan that they've got will be formulated by the middle of this month.
That's right.
So they haven't got a plan now.
No.
But they're going to have a plan in about a week.
That's right, absolutely.
Which seems a very odd way to have a sort of military strategy, doesn't it?
Well, it's almost inviting the Americans to wipe them out before the middle of August so that they can't destroy Guam.
Yeah.
It's a very odd...
And then again, for another question for Colonel Kemp, the rockets would land in waters about 18 to 25 miles away from Guam, an island that is home to about 163,000 people, as well as a US military base. So
there's three US bases there. One is a naval base, and 2 of them are US Air Force bases.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that why would they want to land the rockets in the water?
I don't know.
Outside of the island?
Well, I have no idea.
Is it a warning shot? I mean, what is it?
I'm sure the Colonel will, make it all clear to us. I mean, the one thing that is the unknown quantity in all this is China's role in it, because China have a very influential role.
They certainly do.
And they could stop it at source. But, of course, China's big problem is that if North Korea gets wiped out, then that means that...
Well, they can't. I mean, surely in this day and age, you can't go around wiping out a country, can you?
Well, you can.
No, I don't think so.
Well, no, I think you can, mate. I think you can. And I think that's... we'll talk to the Colonel. That is one of the options. But what I'm saying is, if North Korea goes, then almost certainly South Korea will prevail over North Korea. If you see what I mean, it'll become one country.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I can't imagine, and we will talk to him about this, but I can't envisage a situation where, in the ways of, say, the 60s or the 70s, where you would threaten somebody with a nuclear bomb, that you would just literally wipe out the entire population and flatten the entire country.
I didn't mean that. To get rid of North Korea, all you've got to do really is kill the leader and his top 4 generals, and then bang, it's gone. You know what I mean? But then what you do is you knock down the equivalent of the Berlin Wall, and you merge North Korea with South Korea.
Well, who do you put in charge, though? It doesn't appear to be anybody like in most of these places, say for example like Chile or El Salvador, there was always somebody that they kind of had in mind to take over.
That's right.
Who was going to be more friendly to the West.
Yes, that's
right.
right.
We don't appear to have that figure, do we?
Nobody in North Korea is friendly to the West because you're educated from the age of like 3 days old to hate the West because they're all corrupt and they're going to try and bomb you out of existence.
Yeah.
So there is nobody there. So you have to put somebody in.
Yes.
That somebody will
Which
come
is
from South
problematic.
Korea.
It's problematic,
that problem is there. But the problem then is, of course, China do not have a buffer between the West and themselves, because if North Korea is their buffer between their borders and the West, because South Korea is very, very westernised, and a big American presence in South Korea. So that's going to be the big problem for China to cooperate with the removal of Kim Jong-un.
Indeed. The Korean Central News Agency said this, sound dialogue is not possible with such a guy who is bereft of reason, and only absolute force can work on him.
Yes.
I mean, that could be an American quote about North Korea, but in fact it's the other way around.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I don't actually think it's going to come to anything, any of this, but we'll see what Colonel Richard Kemp has to say. We've got loads coming up. What we'd like from you as well, please, and you can tweet us at the 2 Mics, at Mike Parry, at talkRADIO, at IROMG. We need to do a listography. For those of you who don't know what that is, basically you give us a subject and we tell you 3 stories about that subject. For example, what we've done in the past is the 3 favourite parties we've ever been to, 3 favourite cars we've ever driven.
That's right.
3 favourite destinations we'd like to go to.
3 favourite holidays we've had in the past.
But we won't be doing things like 3 favourite ice cream flavours.
No, we won't.
Because that's not really very good.
No.
So you need to think about what would be a good suggestion
3
for us
favourite
to tell
somethings.
3 good stories about. Sometimes we only tell 2, depending on how long-winded the stories are.
That's absolutely right.
But tweet those at us, hashtag it listography, and away we shall go. Coming up next, though, we're going to be talking to Colonel Richard Kemp. This is Talk Radio.
The 2 Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Talk Radio, we are the 2 Mics. Chris says, MG, that has to be Porky's best ever. When it rains, I take my coat off.
Yes, that's right.
I'm crying here. And Andy says, Porky's the only guy who takes his raincoat off when it's raining and likes tuna that's been properly processed and squashed into a tin.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, very strange.
Well, I don't like undercooked fish. You know, that's... by the way, when I was going home last night, this disgusting woman was waiting on the platform, on the tube station.
Well, I'm going to talk to you about trains later.
Right, okay, yeah. And in her left hand, she had a dish of that stuff you get in sushi, right?
Sushi.
A dish of, like
like in a plastic sort of container.
Yeah, that's right, with 6 bits of sushi in it. And in her right hand, she was using to put the sushi in her mouth.
Yes.
And as she got on the train, she didn't stop. She, she was just eating this sushi.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
Because on the train it was crowded and everybody else was either holding a handrail or a strap hanger or something like that. She was just rocking about, bumping into people, stuffing sushi in her mouth.
What's wrong with
She
that?
was the most disgusting person I've ever seen.
That's so
Eating
intolerant.
in the street is bad enough. Eating on the tube train, disgusting.
Okay.
If I'd have been a guard, I'd have thrown her off. I'd have thrown her off the train for public indiscipline.
Okay. Well, calm down because we've got more important things to talk about. You know, there could be the World War III kicking off soon.
Yes.
So people eating sushi on a train shouldn't bother you too much. Let's talk to Colonel Richard Kemp, who's been waiting patiently listening to that ridiculous tirade from you about a woman on the tube. Richard, a very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. I believe they eat quite a lot of sushi in North Korea as well when they can get it.
Well, when they
when
can
they're not
get
eating bark off the trees, you mean?
I mean, the problem, I suppose, here is Richard. I'm not convinced that this is going to actually come to anything. But what are people in your sort of area saying about this particular dispute?
I don't think we're going to see World War III breaking out anytime soon, or even a lesser war over North Korea. But I think we should be very concerned about it, particularly given the fact that there's recent information has come to light that not only can the North Koreans apparently fire a missile which reaches New York, Washington, and even London, but also can miniaturize nuclear weapons so they can fit onto a missile of that sort, which obviously threatens us all. Now, I'm not suggesting that they're absolutely there with that technology, but I guess it's not going to be that far off before they are. And whether or not we can afford to have a regime like that that's able to threaten some of the most important cities in the Western world, with nuclear attack I think that's something that should concern us all.
That's right. Now, Colonel, the famous quote is, "It only takes good men to do nothing for evil to prosper." So what have the West got to do? You've just said that, maybe they haven't got it now, but in 18 months' time they might have it.
You're right.
I mean, what are we going to do? Are we going to take them out or what?
Yeah, well, I think that's an option, and that option could be achieved by the United States with allies, including Britain. I don't think it should be, and almost certainly will not be, the first option that anyone thinks about. The first thing that's happened, I think, in recent days is the UN Security Council agreeing a pretty significant round of sanctions against North Korea. That's something, but it isn't going to really change the situation. They've been sanctioned for a long time.
Yeah.
The critical trade relationship is with China. China does not want to... It's signed up to these sanctions, but it won't really implement them. It will continue to provide a lifeline to North Korea. Yeah. So the next step, assuming that that's not going to come about, is the first thing that obviously the Americans need to do particularly is to improve defences against nuclear missiles. They've got a number of vulnerable allies in the region, including South Korea and Japan. They need to boost up their defences, plus America's own defences against nuclear weapons. We need to go back, or America does, back to the Star Wars days with Reagan to actually protect against them.
To get an umbrella, you mean?
Yes, an umbrella, which space-based. Yes. The technology exists. It's come on a long, long way since the days of Ronald Reagan. Yep. The Israelis use very effective technology against the threat of, they call it Arrow 3, it's a counter-ballistic missile system against the threat of nuclear attack from Iran. Yep. That would need to be employed and developed even further. I think the next step needs to be to pressurize to pressurize China into actually doing something about North Korea. And it doesn't want to do it, so it has to be really forced to do it. And I think that could be possibly brought about by pretty significant trade action against China.
And that is a problem, isn't it? Because when you look at whatever the sanctions may be or the next move may be, Porky, Parry and I were talking earlier about what happens to Kim Jong-un. Is it simply about removing him? And if it is, who then which sort of puppet gets put into his place, as it were?
Well, that's right. I think in my opinion, there's two options there. One of which is that there is his regime is removed by whatever means, whether it's by military force from the US, whether it's by economic pressure and political pressure from China. And if it's the former, then possibly resulting in a reunification of the two Koreas and an American-controlled, shall we say, regime there initially anyway. And if it's the latter, if it's from pressure from China, then China would have to take control of North Korea in effect, which would not be ideal, but it would be a great deal better than what there is now.
Well,
from Korea's point of view and from the West.
That's right. I mean, China would not accept North Korea being westernised, would it? Because it's their barrier between the West and themselves. Unpalatable as a barrier it is. South Korea is very westernised and got a lot of American forces. The issue here, Colonel, or one of the issues, I'm sorry, because you know what all the issues are, is that we've got a nutcase, Kim Jong-un, who couldn't care less about what happens to the 99.9% of his people as long as he's still okay at the end. I mean, he is Nero, who is playing a fiddle while his country is going to burn, isn't he?
You're absolutely right there, and he's people have tried diplomatic and economic action against him to try and change not him specifically, but him and his predecessors, the overall North Korean regime for 25 years, and it has not worked. Nothing is going to work except forcing him out, either by strangling off his economy, which obviously is also painful for his people because the nuclear weapon program is going to be the last thing to go up, or by military action. And that I can't really see myself. There's been speculation about decapitating the regime by surgical strikes with special forces. I can't really see that coming off. It is a possibility, but I don't really see it happening. And of course, once you did that, if it was done by the West, then it would require the West putting something in its place, which would need troops on the ground would need a lot of financial resources.
I mean, it's right. I mean, it's a Fidel Castro situation, isn't it, in which John F. Kennedy made a complete fool of himself, exploding cigars and all that kind of stuff, and mix that with the Iraq situation, in which nobody in the West made provisions for what would happen after Saddam Hussein went, and you've got those two giant problems, haven't you?
You're right. I mean, maybe the answer is exploding sushi or something like that.
That's right, yeah.
Or in Kim Jong-un's case, it's exploding bottles of brandy and Rambo movies,
that's
I think,
right.
isn't it? But I mean, the other problem, of course, is that if, as you were saying, the West may have to get better at sort of telegraphing what's going on, because one of our Twitterers on Twitter here is asking a question of you. What if missiles get launched from North Korea towards Guam? What is the response going to be? Is it going to be wait and see whether they're nuclear tipped, wait and see whether they're actually going to land where they say they're going to land, or, are they going to go wrong? What would the West's reaction be if suddenly that happened?
I think if that happened, let's say there was any missiles launched towards Guam, I think there would be a response from the US against North Korea, a military response I'm talking about, right. But there'd be some kind of counterfire. Of course, there are real risks to escalating this. I mean, it would have to be escalated. It couldn't just be ignored, and you couldn't just make, say sort of, vitriolic things in the Security Council. But then the risk is of attack of South Korea.
Sure.
Artillery fire across the DMZ into South Korea. Now, some people believe, and I don't disagree, that that threat is slightly exaggerated, because there is a lot of North Korean artillery, but also the South Koreans do have warning capability, and they have effective shelters. So how devastating that will be, we don't know. We can assume there would be civilian casualties in the south.
But Colonel, you mentioned before Israel. Were you sort of thinking about the Patriot missiles, which took out Saddam Hussein's missiles that were aimed at Israel during the Gulf War? And if they worked in those days, that was a long time ago now, presumably they've got a very, very much more updated and better version of the Patriot, have they?
Well, Patriot still exists, and it has been upgraded, but there is much more advanced stuff as well, which the Americans are using. In the case of Israel, they use a thing called Iron Dome, which is a short-range defense system against missiles travelling over a relatively short distance, and they have a thing called Arrow 3 at the other end, which can intercept ballistic missiles in space, which again is proven technology and effective. And I think all of this stuff, I've no doubt whatsoever, I don't have any inside information into it, but I've no doubt whatsoever that the US is now in the process of bolstering the anti-missile defence and anti-artillery defence in South Korea.
Yeah, absolutely.
Colonel Richard Kemp, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Colonel.
Fascinating situation. Clearly, it's something to watch, and we will be keeping an eye on it over the course of the next few days.
Hawk-like.
Indeed, hawk-like, as you say.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
It's a wonderful night, you gotta take it from me. It's a wonderful night, come on and break it on down. It's a wonderful night, you gotta shake it for me. It's a wonderful night, come on and break it on down.
This is Talk Radio. We are the Two Mics. I've got a message from Laura who says, can you please wish my boyfriend Steve a happy 30th birthday for tomorrow? Thank you. She says she'll pay in kind. I don't know what she means by that.
Well, she must be talking about a bottle of booze.
Maybe.
I would imagine.
We've still got plenty of wine left over, by the way, since the visit of the wine bird yesterday.
That's right.
Helena.
A lovely lady, by the way. I've had a tremendous
great,
response back saying how enamoured everybody was by her attitude to wine.
A lot of people said to me that, what I should think about doing is ditching you and doing a show with her.
Well, that wouldn't be a bad idea, but as I'm ditching you next week anyway...
you're not actually ditching me. No, I'm going away on holiday.
We'll see how the one-man show goes, okay?
Well, I'll be surprised if you have more than one show on your own, to be honest, because it'll probably be such a disaster.
No.
They'll have to bring somebody else in.
Now, ahead of next week's show, right, I'm now going to read out the number.
You didn't wish Steve a happy birthday, did you?
Sorry, what's his name again?
His name's Steve.
And what's his girlfriend's name?
His girlfriend's Laura.
Right, Steve, I want to say to you a very happy birthday. It's the 30th. And you can thank this tribute to the lovely Laura, your girlfriend, because she's rooting for you and so are we. Have a great life.
There you go. Have a great life.
Yes, that's right. You know.
Now, what did you want to read out to me?
Well, I'm going to give out the number now, okay? In the non-Manglemouth fashion.
If you
And the
say
number
so.
for Talk Radio, where you can get hold of the two mics here, but particularly next week, because without old MG next week, I am going to be relying on you folks
Yeah,
out
you
there.
are going to have to help Porky out because, otherwise you'd just be talking at you for 3 hours a day.
No.
And what you want to do is give him a few ideas.
No, this is your choice. Your choice is 3 hours of me telling you how the world should run.
Yes.
3 hours of telling me how you should behave.
Yeah.
3 hours of telling you how everybody else should behave.
Yeah.
And 3 hours of telling you how I will not behave, despite what you think.
Okay.
However, if you wish to torpedo that,
Yes.
then you should call.
I might call in from Greece, actually.
Call in from Greece and be a caller on the show. You should call 0344
Yes.
499
Yes.
1000.
Yeah, you should put that into your book of memories in some way,
Exactly.
shape or form. If you say it often enough, I suppose, you'll be all right there. Now, how about this from Parry? He says, MG, how are you going to tell Porky and Bill Oddie apart once they're in the studio together?
That's a good question.
And another one on Bill Oddie from Paul in Hove, who says, I'm sure Bill Oddie is coming in to promote something such our media interviews, but do you know he is even more grumpy than Porky?
No, he's not, actually. He's a very well-balanced man, Bill
I don't
Oddie.
think I've spoken to Bill Oddie before.
Very creative chap, you know, a man who really has succeeded in several areas of showbiz and the media and the arts and the sciences. And he's coming in to tell us about his garden and his love of birds and bird watching,
Okay.
which
Now-
he's done since he was a small child.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Richard says this, it's okay saying retaliate against North Korea, but 99% of the casualties would be innocent civilians, as usual.
Oh, yeah, of course they
And
would.
so does that not have to be taken into account then?
Well, everything has to be taken into account. The point is, if a dictator is so unconcerned about his people, what can you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't want to go into the depths of history, but it's a situation at the end of the Second World War when Japan had to be warned that, you know, unless they unconditional surrender was delivered, they would introduce a weapon, nobody quite knew what it was in those days, which would obliterate their country.
Well, isn't it interesting that, in fact, Roosevelt is quoted, I think I saw it on the news either last night or this morning,
Okay.
using almost the same phrase that Donald Trump used.
What was that?
About a weapon.
Fire and fury.
Not just the fire and fury, but something the world has never seen before.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Which, of course, in Roosevelt's case, was indeed an atom bomb.
It was.
Which hadn't been seen before.
It hadn't.
Trump doesn't have something that hasn't been seen before.
How do we know?
Well, because I don't think he does.
No, I mean, I'm not being provocative here, and I'm not trying to be smart, but how do we know?
Are you saying that there might be some kind of super weapon that he's going to unleash upon them?
For years, military strategists have, you know, whispered in behind closed doors about this bomb that can destroy buildings but not kill people. It's a sound bomb. I know this sounds ridiculous.
No.
I probably know what I'm talking about.
No, I know.
But
I know
there's
you're
this
talking about the sort of reverberations of sonic technology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, because I've seen, in fact, I think we've all seen some form of that in practice. I think before.
Yeah.
Where they've just shown what it could do.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
And it can sort of blow things apart. It can.
That's right.
But it doesn't hurt people.
That's right. Do we know if it exists? Well, who knows? You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. And let's face it, Donald Trump, who is a man who likes to speculate about the grandeur and the greatness, not of himself, but of his country, would be the perfect guy to say, you know, I've got something for you which you didn't know I had, or something like that. You know what I mean?
But I mean,
so we just don't know.
In terms of Donald Trump, though, I mean, it's entirely within his kind of character to make claims about something which is not really true.
Certainly,
or he can't actually back it up. While we're talking, I'm just looking at a story here that's been sent to me on Twitter, in which it says Japan has moved missile defense systems into central Tokyo.
Yes.
People are rushing to buy bomb shelters. U.S. citizens in Hawaii
Yeah.
are told to prepare for a nuclear attack.
Yeah.
But people in South Korea are surprisingly blasé. I mean,
well, they
people
are
getting a bit carried away here.
No, they're not getting carried away, Mike. What happens is the people in South Korea hear these threats 3 times a week, you know, that he's going to blow everybody up and all that, and so they're completely blasé about it. But if you remember, and I can remember a little bit as a sort of young kid, you know, there's a place called Fylingdale on the Yorkshire Moors where there's these 3 domes.
Right.
And that was the early warning system against Russian attack, right? And even when I remember when I was 10 or 11, my mum and dad very seriously said, oh, we only get a 4-minute warning, you know. I said, what's that?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you know, we saw a picture of these. I said, what are those, Mum? What are those, Dad? Oh, that's the 4-minute warning when the Russians come.
And where were you supposed to go?
No idea.
Was there not a shelter or something?
No, I don't think so, or anything like that. That's a 4-minute warning. You just say your goodbyes to your family because we're all going to get blown to smithereens by the Russians.
You didn't have to do that thing in school where you had to practice hiding under the desk or anything like that.
No. That was never came in. I don't think we were that close to it. But I mean, they did talk. My mum and dad used to seriously talk about the 4-minute warning. Now, my old fella had fought in the Second World War. My mother had been brought up in bomb-ravaged Birkenhead.
Yeah.
They knew about war, you know. So they were sort of, you know, they were prepared to believe it could happen again, if you see what I mean.
Sure, because they couldn't, unlike us, who are not prepared at all for anything like that.
Exactly.
But apparently, interestingly enough, after you introduced the subject to Colonel Kemp, it's Patriot missile units that they're putting into central Tokyo.
Is that it? Yeah.
And it's a PAC-3, it's called.
Well, they were the ones that took down Saddam Hussein's bombs.
Yeah, they could sort of basically take down different sized missiles in the sky.
That's right, that's absolutely
right.
right.
So, I mean, it's a very strange situation we're currently dealing with, because I suppose of all the presidents in the White House that you would not want to be there under these circumstances, it's sort of Donald Trump, isn't it?
Or look at it the other way.
Yeah.
Perhaps he's the president you would want there because he's not going to take any messing from this nutty guy who other presidents have sort of, you know... I mean, Obama just...
Yeah, but... It's,
you know, with the greatest respect to President Obama, he just walked away from it.
Well, no, because the public, after Iraq,
Yes.
have not got the stomach for it. I think that's part of the problem.
Could be.
People do worry about their popularity.
Could be.
And you've also, as you pointed out earlier, got to think of the Chinese situation. It's not just about North Korea. It's about China. But we'll come back to it. We've got loads more to do.
We certainly have.
Because we are, for the moment, just going to take a short...
By the way, I want to get back onto the Glenn Campbell situation.
Okay,
yes. Really do.
I know you will, because I saw that headline yesterday night, and I thought, Porky's going to love this.
Oh, well.
This is Talk Radio.
Oh, wow.
The 21st century dream team of dialogue, debate and discourse. The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
And the Wichita lineman is still on the line.
A bit more Glenn Campbell for you. Now, you didn't like the song yesterday, like a rhinestone cowboy.
Yes.
What we didn't know that was when he was singing about the Wichita lineman, that he was lining up a lot of lines of cocaine while he was writing it.
That's absolutely right. You know, some of the younger members of our production crew out there are saying it's a bit unfair, really, to go into the seedier side of his life because now he's dead.
Why?
I said, well, yeah, he's dead, and
this is an obituary that was in the Times.
Well, exactly. Look at this. This is the Times, the Thunder, one of the world's most famous newspapers. It starts like this.
It's not just about scuttlebutt, is it?
It's not scuttlebutt, and this is not me putting these words together. This is one of the Times obituary writers who are the most respected in the world.
Yeah.
And it says, first of all, the strap above it, God-fearing country star who mixed the Bible with sex and cocaine, and whose many musical hits included Rhinestone Cowboy. And then the first paragraph, in an image that captured the dichotomy of his life, Glenn Campbell revealed in his autobiography that at the height of his fame, he spent his nights hoovering up lines of cocaine while reading the Bible. He titled the book...
It's a very odd thing to do sort of together, isn't it?
It is, actually.
Why would you want to read the Bible
while
while
you're
doing
asking for forgiveness
drugs?
while you're sinning?
Yeah, maybe.
You know, while you're
cut out the
sinning,
middleman.
Yeah, God, I'm a sinner, forgive me. He titled the book Rhinestone Cowboy after one of his biggest hits, in which he sang the legendary line, "There's been a load of compromising on the road to my horizon."
I didn't know you liked that song.
I don't. And although he had not written that lyric, it was a metaphor as autobiographical as anything in his memoir.
Oh, yeah.
A God-fearing, scripture-quoting evangelical who said his name singing who made his name singing middle-of-the-road country pop ballads, but his penchant for drugs, excessive drink and wild women rivaled the feral appetites of the most hedonistic rock and roll.
Well, I mean, you talk about country music, and some of the most, what you would regard as rock and roll style individuals were country music stars.
Well, what
I mean, look at somebody like Willie Nelson.
I was going to say Willie Nelson.
Kenny Rogers. Actually, by the way, somebody pointed out yesterday, are you sure that it wasn't Kenny Rogers that you were saying was with Sinead O'Connor rather than...
No.
Who you said it was Chris Christopherson.
It was definitely Chris Christopherson, honestly.
Somebody also said that she tore up the picture of the Pope on Saturday Night Live.
Well, she tore up another one on stage because I was
Maybe
sitting there
she's just
watching
carrying
it.
around a lot of pieces of the Pope.
Maybe she does carry around a lot of
ready to tear them up
lot of
at any
pictures of that.
moment.
That's right, yeah.
Now, we've got lots of listography suggestions. We're going to come to that in the later points. But
Okay.
here's one from Stephen. Perhaps you can explain this to him. I don't think he quite understands. He says, a weapon that destroys buildings but not people. What happens when the buildings fall on the people inside them?
Yeah, it's good.
Well, the
good
point is you
question.
tell the people to get out of the buildings.
Of course you do, yeah.
Like they did when they first bombed Baghdad.
That's
Actually,
right.
you know, we were watching it on TV thinking
Yeah.
this is horrendous. There's going to be hundreds of thousands of people
That's
dead.
right. They all
But
fled into the
But
desert.
they'd evacuated
Yeah,
the
they
whole
had, yeah.
place. And so
They had.
actually there weren't any casualties.
That's right.
That's, I think, what they would do, Stephen.
Yeah, I mean, I think the view is it's better to decimate the buildings in the city than the people in the city.
But
you know?
and obviously you ask the people to get out.
Of course you
That's
do.
the point of it, I think.
Of course you do.
Anyway, let's move on to something slightly less violent.
Yes.
Well, at least it should be slightly less
Yes.
violent. Professor Les Ebden is joining us, right,
Great.
from Hertfordshire. He is, of course, the Director of Fair Access to Higher Education at the Office for Fair Access because there's an alarming drop, apparently, in the numbers of people going to further and higher education.
Yes.
And I suppose the survey, which has been done by the Sutton Trust, is going to suggest that people are going to education later in life in smaller numbers because they can't afford it.
I would think
Let's
so.
find out. Professor Ebden, a very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you, and thank you for having me on because I can take some of the panic out on this one.
Great.
Actually, the numbers of students in full-time higher education in this country are up by 17% since 2008, and in fact, the numbers from the most disadvantaged area are up even more.
I thought the admissions for universities were down on sort of year on year. I mean, they'd be up, I suppose, from 8 years ago because obviously there's more kids going through to more universities, aren't there?
Well, the numbers aren't down in full time. I think there was a rather misleading article in the Sunday Times on Sunday, which conflated the part-time and the full-time numbers. Part-time students are down by almost 60%.
60%? That's a bit large, isn't it?
It is, and it worries me a lot as Director of Fair Access because, of course, many part-time students come from disadvantaged areas and they're doing it part-time, perhaps to save money, perhaps because they have other commitments, and so we are concerned about the fall in part-time students, certainly.
That's what it is. Now, Prof, I'm all for equal opportunities for all young people who want to better
I
themselves.
think I prefer.
Sorry?
Professor, rather
Well,
than
Prof, is it okay to call you Prof?
It's fine, it's fine.
Thank you very much indeed. Thanks, Prof. And just don't stick your nose in when I'm having a
Well,
conversation
I just
with
want
the
to make
Professor.
sure you're not upsetting
No,
anyone.
Professor, what I'm going to say is I'm all for equal opportunities for young people who want to go on in life. However, having come through the educational system myself a few years ago...
A few years ago?
A few years ago.
A few decades ago.
It seemed to me that the only choice I had was O-levels, A-levels, university degree. Shouldn't there be more options for young people rather than being on a conveyor belt like that? For instance, I would like more opportunities for young people to become bricklayers and plumbers and carpenters, if that's what they want to do. I'd like more opportunities for young people to learn about, how to become an estate agent or something like that.
Well, I certainly agree that it should be about opportunity and that people should be following what they want to do. And, of course, the government has addressed, to some extent, the issue about apprenticeships. There are new routes through to apprenticeships, including the higher apprenticeships, which should have the same status as a degree.
Absolutely.
I think what we do have to recognise, probably since you and I were in education, is that the nature of the world of work has changed quite a lot. A lot of jobs have declined or disappeared. A lot of jobs have upskilled, and so many more jobs now require a degree which didn't before. Teaching, nursing, very obvious ones, but equally...
well, the media is very much in that situation as well, Professor, because people are trying to get into jobs in newspapers and in broadcasting and all of that. Quite often will never even get past the interview stage if they don't have a degree.
Yes, that's a remarkable change, isn't it, in your profession?
Yeah,
it is.
In recent years, and of course, many people get into the profession now by starting up their own blogs and their own news websites. So it's a very different world in which we live.
It certainly is. A friend of mine runs a scaffolding company in Scotland. He regularly has to send people over to Eastern Europe to get bricklayers. And another friend of mine whose father is a lorry driver started his own business because there's such a shortage of lorry drivers. And I don't think they're the sort of skills we're addressing. I think the trouble with young people these days is, Prof, that they all want to get some glamorous sort of letters behind their names, in the media or being a beautician or something like that. And, the core working community is being let go.
Well, I I think that young people are very sensible in identifying that the better paid jobs in the future are going to be for people with degrees and university education.
Yeah, but are they? Aren't too many people, I'm sorry to interrupt, aren't too many people coming out of university with a degree which turns out then to be pretty worthless in the workplace? You know, we see people sitting behind desks all the time, welcoming people into buildings as receptionists and all that, and they've got a degree in something, but it hasn't been any use to them in the workplace.
Well, the vast majority, of course, of students do go on into a professional career. They go on to enjoy a substantial graduate premium. Mm-hmm. I think the other thing we know is that they're more likely to have satisfying careers. The research shows us that they're more likely to remain healthy, they're more likely to volunteer and to be better citizens. And, of course, what we need to recognise is that this skills revolution is going to continue, and this country is going to be competitive in the economy in the future. Then we do need a lot of highly skilled people, and so I think young people are making the right choice when they choose to go to university. But we still there's still plenty of other youngsters who are not going to university. Some of them should. Some of them perhaps should be aiming for apprenticeships. What we need to do is look at everybody as an individual to achieve what is best for them. What is wrong is that people should not be given the opportunity to go to higher education because of where they come from or the colour of their skin.
Totally agree.
Isn't it the case, Professor, that we've created a kind of a false educational pyramid here, though? Because in some ways it's an upside-down pyramid, because you've got as many people as you can getting into as many people as you want to invite, really, getting into higher education, because higher education under the Blair government was created as a sort of massive business. And so now, basically, people are sort of shoehorned into higher education because it makes a lot of money for the institutions.
Well, it's funny you should refer to it as an upside-down pyramid, because you're exactly right. The economy has moved to... Well, economists call it an hourglass economy these days. Actually, what they're saying is that jobs in the middle skill range have disappeared. So, for example, my last job as a Vice-Chancellor was in Luton. Right. When I grew up not far away from Luton, everybody's aspiration was to work on the assembly line in Vauxhall, well-paid, a skilled job. Yep. Now, of course, that nobody works on that assembly line making cars, and even where they make vans, of course, it's automated. Robots can do that job much better than humans. So jobs in the middle of the labour market have disappeared. Some of the jobs that I would have thought when I was growing up would have disappeared, low-skilled jobs, cleaning a very obvious one. Actually, those jobs have remained because they're very difficult to automate. Yes. And what has grown have been the highly skilled jobs, the people who write the computer program which controls the robots that work on that assembly line, the people who perfect the production, who raise the finance for a car plant. All of those jobs have grown and increased. And so we have this, if you like, an inverted pyramid stuck on top of a pyramid-type economy.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. There is still one inequality here, though, Prof, and that is if your parents are wealthy, you've got a much better chance of getting to university with less debt than you have if you have to completely fund it yourself. Even if you're a very hard-working youngster and you get a job while you're at university, you're still going to come out with a £25,000 deficit, and that's unfair on kids from poorer homes.
Well, of course, we need to recognise that nobody has to pay their university fees up front. There is a loan, as you say, which is repayable once people are earning above a threshold and then at a reasonable rate. So nobody should be put off going to university.
Well, I think it does put kids off, doesn't it?
Well, I think now, especially because we saw the reaction of a lot of young people when they thought that Jeremy Corbyn at the last election was going to do away with student debt, and they all voted for him on that basis alone. So I think they worry about it.
Well, I can't be drawn into a political discussion. I'm an independent
I certainly wouldn't wish to draw you into that.
Who's there to make sure that everybody with the talent and ability to succeed in higher education gets a real opportunity to do so. Because it's a transformational difference. It made an enormous difference in my life, coming off an estate, to be able to to do the things that I've been able to do and enjoy the kind of career that I've been able to enjoy.
Yeah.
And I would encourage many youngsters to be ambitious and to think in terms of going into higher education, making the best of their abilities. It's good for the country, it's good for them, and it'll give us a more cohesive society.
That's great. And Prof, I want you to, I want to know if you will join a campaign that MG, that's my fellow broadcaster, and I are going to start, because we want
Hang
a
on,
new...
excuse me. What campaign are we starting?
I've talked to you about it in the past, don't worry. It's a new career plan, and we want this as a degree course. We've both lived and worked in America, where the quality of barman in bars is absolutely superb,
true,
okay?
actually, yeah.
These guys know, they know how to serve a cocktail, they know how to serve a gin and tonic, and you come back to England, you get so disappointed. When is bartending going to become a degree course, and how can we get this on the agenda?
And how can you get to be a lecturer at one of the colleges running it?
Yeah, we'd be volunteer lecturers.
And I think you'd be interested in the samples, wouldn't you?
Well, absolutely. You'd have to do a bit of that, obviously.
We can't be drawn into that sort of discussion, I'm afraid, Professor.
Yes, that's right. That's too political for us.
Well, thank you very much indeed. Professor Les Ebden, who is, of course, with us from the Fair Access to Higher Education, is what he was talking about there. I don't know why you bet these people on the show and who completely then contradict the first question I give him.
What do you mean?
You said to me that, the admissions are way down, and apparently they're not.
No.
You got it completely wrong.
Sorry, have you never, ever understood the principle of get a set of statistics and do anything you want to do with them?
Well, exactly.
I can tell you that admissions...
Well, you told me admissions were down.
Oh, yeah. And then he went on to about, part-time students are down, so he quantified it into part-time students, okay? But believe me, the report I read this morning, I read every detail of it before we got the prof on.
I see.
Admissions are heading downwards,
Why don't you just admit you got it wrong?
No, I'm not admitting anything. I didn't get anything wrong.
This is Talk Radio.
Not me.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Crazy horses. Crazy horses. Never stop and they never die. They just keep on pumping how they multiply. Crazy horses, will they never halt? If they keep on moving, then it's all our fault. Crazy horses.
This is Talk Radio. We are the Two Mics. We've got all sorts of things to discuss between now and 4 o'clock, of course, including we've got to do a listography, but we'll get that figured out very shortly. I'm delighted to say, however, that we are now joined by one of the legends of the comedy world and indeed the bird-watching world, I suppose you would say as well. It is Mr. Bill Oddie. Bill, very good afternoon to you. Welcome.
Yes. I've an interesting choice there, isn't it? You know, do I want to be known as a birdwatcher or a comedy? I'm not a comedian, never was. I was a writer and performer.
Yes.
It's a bit more dignified, actually, because what I am now, I suppose, is a sort of conservationist.
Right. Which is far more worthy, of course.
Of course it is.
Well, it is, but it's also more useful, to be perfectly honest. Although I think making people laugh isn't a bad start. You know?
It's not a bad start, but I suppose the difficulty, if you are known as somebody who makes people laugh, is that they expect you to always make them laugh.
I think, for the rest of your life.
So they meet you and they go, actually, you're not that funny.
Tell me a joke.
I know, but I can show you a sparrow if you like.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
Like that.
But I mean, talking about sparrows and all that, I've had a look at your book, Tales of Ludicrous Bird Gardener, Bill Oddie. Fantastic, Bill, because what you've done is you've focused on your own garden. Now, how many people have ever written a book about their own garden before? I don't know anybody.
I don't know. There'll be a serious one, and I'm not being remotely critical here, but obviously the gardening section in a bookshop is absolutely overflowing.
Yes.
There's hundreds of them. And on top of that, there's equally a very large percentage of them will be about attracting wildlife to your garden or how to make a wildlife garden.
Yes.
I know about 30 or 40. I know most of the authors. And so I swore to myself when I got this idea, I thought, I even put it on the front there, I think, this is definitely not a book about attracting wildlife to your garden.
That's right.
It's a book about some of the wildlife that has turned up in my garden, but it's also my relationship with the garden through the years. And I think if everybody thinks about it, you know, right from when you're a little kid, in my case, I lived in Rochdale, industrial Lancashire, and we didn't really have a garden. It was just it was a square of mud and a white porcelain sink with some, and you know, in it everybody I've mentioned that to has said, we had one of those too.
That's right.
We're coming to the conclusion that there was a mass burial of white porcelain sinks at some point.
And the Rochdale Cowboy used to gallop through occasionally. Yeah.
That's right.
But, Bill, one of the most interesting things about what you've done here is who gave you the idea to put mirrors in your garden so birds could look at themselves? And what was their reaction when they did?
Well, first of all, this was part of my uppityness to disprove all sorts of theories that you do read in serious articles about wildlife in gardens. And one of the, there's always a list of what you must not do. And it always said you mustn't put, you mustn't put any mirrors or reflecting things in your garden.
Why?
Well, the theory is that birds will crash into them. They'll see their own reflection, fly at them, and hurt themselves or even kill themselves. But that happens anyway, whether you've got mirrors or not. And so I hit the idea of having reflections all the way around the garden. I've actually got about 2 or 3, what do they call them, glitter balls, like in a ballroom.
Sparkly.
Yeah, and that sends out, in the first thing in the morning as the sun comes over the horizon next door from Lower Hampstead, it's an absolute kaleidoscope of I suppose, sunbeams. And it's
Brilliant.
a lovely effect. And the mirrors are, in the same reason you sometimes use mirrors to make a room look bigger.
Yep.
It makes the garden look bigger too,
Right.
and there's masses of them. There's only 2 or 3 big ones, but there's lots of little ones, and I've seen that bit of behaviour with hedge sparrows, seeing their own reflection and saying, "Oh, there's a rival here." To be honest, shouldn't laugh at them, but you can't help it because they say, "Bash, where you going? What's happening?" And then they nip behind the mirror.
Right.
Would they not? It's interesting, isn't it? Because would they not have seen themselves before, say, reflected in a pool or something like that?
Very unlikely, I suspect. I mean, water birds, you think, would have, wouldn't you? Yeah. It's possible, but basically what I'm saying is it's not a harmful thing whatsoever. Right. And beyond that, I also have all sorts of... they're usually resin made, I suppose, of very realistic predators, birds of prey and hawks and all that sort of thing, all the way around the garden, and the classic heron over the pond.
Yes.
And people do that. They go and buy it. 30 quid from the garden centre. Give me a heron. I've got. I'm worried about having my carp eaten or something like that.
Yes.
And I want to say, no, it won't work. If you think about it, if there's a heron, a real heron, flying over, and he looks down and sees what appears to be another real heron at a little pond, he's not going to say, "Oh, I'm not going to go down there. I don't like sharing." He's going to say, "Oh, must be food down there. I'll join it." So they're called decoys, for God's sake.
Yes.
And yet it's a huge industry, and I've collected, and there's some photos in the book, masses of small birds perched on top of the heads of the sort of birds that should eat them.
Right, yeah, sure.
And they don't care.
And they're fearless. Do you have characters in your garden? I mean, people who, carriers...
People? You mean animals?
Well, I mean animals, yeah. that either live there or return each night at dawn or are there in the mornings when you wake up?
That sort of thing varies, I never like to disillusion people who say, "Oh, yes, I've got this robin, it's been coming for 10 years now." And you wonder, no, it hasn't.
No.
They only last a couple of years at the most, it's just the same thing. But there have been, and once or twice, the stories have been short enough to include there. Like we had this little great tit, which I eventually christened Limpy, because first of all, I could hear there were youngsters in a box. Then I found Mrs. Limpy, who we didn't know he was called that then, in bits underneath it, and a smug-looking cat from next door.
Oh dear.
I hear he shall pay for it someday. But and so I thought, it'll last. But he carried on feeding, coming out, and then I saw him with one leg dangling off, totally useless. I don't know whether being grabbed again, whatever. But he carried on, and he got those youngsters out. So triumph.
So you've got a one-legged bird in your garden now.
Yeah. He was known. Yes, he lasted a couple of years because obviously it was easy to see.
Yes,
I suppose cats are the sort of perennial problem, aren't
Well, Yeah, I mean, I don't want to come over as an inveterate cat hater, even if I
Porky
am.
doesn't like
even
cats.
if I am.
No, okay.
He thinks
No, I
they're
don't.
evil. He thinks
I
they're
do.
evil, don't you?
I do. I think
I
they...
do. I think they're sneaky.
Yeah.
And their parents, actually the owners usually call themselves mummy.
They do, yeah.
And that sort of thing. Are you coming to mummy?
Yeah, that's
Yes,
right,
come
yeah.
here. Yes. Oh no, mummy's far too fat to eat anything, isn't she? You know. And they always say that. My cat won't catch anything. He's too fat, too slow. It's not true, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Every cat will have a go, although I do agree some are better than others. We have a wicked one down our street, and it does a big patrol. I've seen it about a couple of 100 yards away, and then it's back again, you know.
Right.
And it's got guilt written all over it.
Now, you also have a huge collection of garden gnomes, don't you?
Yes, I do, yes.
Now, garden gnomes can be a source of ribaldry to a lot of people, but
yes.
I've got gnomes. I have a roof garden, by the way. My broadcaster partner here mocks me constantly, but I live in a penthouse and I have a roof garden.
Fantastic.
And
Well,
I've
it's
lots
not
of
really
plants.
a penthouse, but
do
I mean,
you know the most common animal in my roof garden, Bill, is snails. I get lots and lots of snails.
Imagine them climbing up.
How do they get up there? Yeah.
Sorry?
How do they get up there?
I don't know, but
they can. I mean, they can come up streetlit from. They can climb a hell of a long way. Snails.
Yeah, they do, and they get around on the terrace and all that, and the birds come and all that kind of stuff. But what I really like is providing that environment for bees. Do you get a lot of bees in your garden?
Not enough is all I can say.
Right.
I do absolutely love bees. Apart from anything else, we should all love bees because they do an amazing job in the world, as it were. And they're threatened by use of terrible pesticides, which have been killing them off again in more than one country. I think Britain's wavering. The trouble is we haven't got anybody to decide anything at the moment in Britain. You know,
That's right. Yeah,
no, we were actually saying this morning that Madame Tussauds is apparently going to commission a wax statue of Theresa May. To which I said, well, how are you going to tell the difference? Just put one of those in Downing Street while you're at it.
Bit harsh. But the bees that come into my roof garden, they concentrate on gnomes. I've got two gnomes. One is a gnome with a wheelbarrow, and the other one is a gnome which flies a flag of Everton Football Club, which is my football club.
Everton gnome.
The Everton gnome, And I don't know why the bees they're always buzzing around the gnomes.
There must be something there that's attractive.
Yeah.
I mean, with the one type of bee I have had twice now in the garden is what's called a tree bee.
Okay.
And it sounds like I was making this up, but they're actually from the continent, and like a lot of wild creatures who can fly, they've started coming to Britain a few years ago, and they're now getting much more common. And they nothing they like better than to take over an old nest box. And one day I went out in the garden, and this little old wooden nest box almost falling apart. I saw bees going in and out. So I just stood there and watched, and then I realised that it was actually a colony. Not huge, but it was a colony, as many as you can get in a nest box. And they're so entertaining, because they're rather lovely looking bees. You know, they've just got sort of black bit and a ginger bit, you know. So
well, it's funny you say that, because I've got quite a big garden down in Sussex, and last summer there was one of the old trees which is still standing, and I was out just sort of wandering about looking at things, and suddenly noticed there was loads and loads of bees just around the trunk of this tree. Well, and that must have been the same thing then.
It could well be. I've got to watch that. But
exactly.
But on the other hand, bees do sometimes swarm in a most peculiar way.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine, she lives up in Derby, and a friend of hers rang her up and said, "There's bees all over the road. I don't know what to do. There's a great big bunch of bees."
Yeah.
My friend Lynn is absolutely fearless. She marched along there and just scooped them up in her hands. Didn't get bitten at all, you know.
Okay.
Just sort of took them into the nearest garden. But the tree bees, they know how to defend themselves. Not ridiculous, but they have a guard. It was perfectly obvious, you know. There was always one outside going, anybody come. And one day, I must have gone an inch too close, and I'm not kidding. He actually followed me, chased me all the way around the garden.
Really?
And then just as I was going to go, okay, and go in the house, doing, He just gave me one
gave
little
you one.
zap.
Wow.
Yeah, and it wasn't a terrible one. I find being stung by bees a privilege, really.
Yes.
Really? That's
How
rather
interesting.
nice, yeah.
Well, listen, Bill, do stay with us. We've got loads more to talk to you about.
We need to talk to you about where you found your love for bird watching, Max, because I think that's from a very early age, isn't it?
Yes, we do indeed. We'll get back to that very shortly.
Definitely.
We are the Two Mics. Bill Oddie's here with us. This is Talk Radio.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Hey! The sun goes down like a bad, bad dream. You end up tight. Gotta let off steam. They say they can break.
This is Talk Radio. We are the Two Mics. Listography coming up a little bit later on in the show. We've got to pick something that we should be talking about. 3 little stories that we can tell later on. Bill Oddie's here with us, though. We've been talking about his book, of course, which he says is not a book about gardening, because it isn't really.
It's not about gardening.
It's about an
not
awful lot
wildlife,
else, isn't it?
But it is the way the two interact. but
Yes.
It's not serious.
Apparently, the Daily Mail describes your garden as one of the most bizarre back gardens in Britain. I suppose that's quite a good thing to be called.
It's quite complimentary for
Yeah.
the Daily Mail.
Well, it is,
They'll
isn't
be
it?
having a go at me.
For them to, for the Daily Mail to think you're bizarre, I think it's no bad thing at all.
No. Well, that was the idea. That's why I've called it. What's the big word on the front? Ludicrous.
That's
isn't it?
right,
Yeah,
yeah.
ludicrous. That was my wife. Is my wife waving to somebody?
Something's gone wrong with Porky's microphone.
No, it's quite all right. Don't worry.
Okay.
It's all there. It's all there.
My wife came up with that word one day. Came out in the garden several years ago, but it was already. She hadn't been in for a while, and she looked out at it and she said, "This garden is getting ludicrous."
Mm-hmm.
With which she swept away and has never been since in the garden.
Right. But I mean, you must
There
have.
can be an upside to that as well,
I
I
just
suppose.
said, "Thank you, dear. That's exactly what
Yes.
I'm trying
Your
to do."
heart
Yeah.
must have leaped. Now, when you're sitting in your garden and you say you spend half an hour at a time sitting there,
Yeah.
you've just revealed to us in the break there that you could actually be somewhere else at the moment, not sitting in your garden.
I could have been somewhere else. It's somewhere I probably. No, I don't know whether I get shot or ostracised for saying this, but I could have been in the Big Brother house at this moment, which I think started the celebrity Big Brother house.
Right.
No offence to them or anybody else, but I for 2 seconds I had to go. When you ask what the fee is.
Yes.
Because it's ridiculous.
Really?
I could buy a couple of footballers with that, yeah. It's ridiculous.
How did you manage to turn it down if it's that sort of worthwhile, as it were?
Because I have principles.
All right, okay.
Well, you must be one of the very few people
Exactly.
left in the worlds of either television or even gardening, to be honest, who've got principles.
Well, no, I do feel strongly about it. I turned down I'm a Celebrity to get me out of here a couple of times. Cause
In
quite
Australia?
rightly, but yeah, you know.
But I mean, you would have seen nature at its
Yeah,
rawest,
well,
wouldn't you?
exactly.
Yeah.
Except it was all the grounds of a hotel, really. You know.
Right.
But anyway, but no, I'm not going on television eating wildlife. You know.
No,
because they
sure.
often had live wildlife, which I'm liable to want to make a program about. You know, so, you know,
And so did they, when they sort of approach you for this kind of thing, or particularly for the
Yes.
Celebrity Big Brother, do they up the figure? I mean, what does it start at? And
No,
does it?
no,
They just
I
come
tell
right out
my-
with.
I tell my agent not to do that.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
Don't go any higher.
So what sort of
Because he said-
ballpark was it then?
I'm not going to tell you.
No. Well,
It
James Whale
shocked
went
me.
on it, a colleague
James
of
Whale
ours.
went on it,
Yeah, I know the
And
old
he
ones, yeah.
said that when he turned it down the first time, they came back, and then
Yeah,
they turned it
yeah.
down, he came back.
Right.
So he made it worthwhile for himself.
You see, one of the things, it was certainly worthwhile. Now, one of the programs I did do was the Marigold Hotel thing
yes.
last year in India, and that was lovely. You
Right.
know, there was no competition, there was no, sort of paparazzi elements
No.
to it. I expect they hope there were, but there weren't, you know, and that was lovely. So
Yeah.
I think stick
A bit
to
more
my
civilised.
style.
Well, that's
Yeah.
the thing as well. I mean, see, people have often suggested that Mr. Parry would be a great I'm a Celebrity type contestant.
What?
Well, they have.
Yeah,
They
well,
would,
yeah,
because,
maybe,
you know,
yeah.
he's one of these people that can quite irritate people. And, you know, you always get the sense that they want you to sort of do
course
something
they do.
outrageous.
That's
Of course
right.
they
And
do.
if you go in and I wondered if you ever got asked whether you could just sort of take the money and somehow engineer it so you got thrown out straight away.
I don't think I mean, they must be aware of that.
Yeah.
And I didn't go into it very much. A couple of nice researcher-type people who said, I suppose you could sort of get thrown up, but obviously they don't encourage it. You certainly don't go in saying,
No.
Well, I've got something to do this afternoon.
Sure.
Throw me out, people.
Sure.
Yes.
Do you have difficulty separating your new life and your old life? Sometimes somebody like Noel Gallagher doesn't want to talk about Oasis anymore. John Lennon didn't want to talk about the Beatles.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I'm delighted, I suppose, to have been connected throughout the years with about 3 or 4 enterprises on telly or whatever, or radio.
Sure.
And
to have been an entertainer.
Well, I don't know whether it's even that, but I mean, good wildlife programmes are certainly entertaining, no question, But a lot of the same criteria apply. I know people are surprised and say, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I'm doing a wildlife programme. I'm looking for not jokes, but an angle to things to make it interesting.
Sure.
I want it to be an interesting programme as well as if you like, just the wildlife,
Yeah.
Although I've got a sneaky feeling BBC don't agree with that.
Well,
or didn't.
No, sure.
Well, the trouble I often find with television now is that they kind of flog the dead horse of programmes to just to death, don't they? Where you've got, oh look, let's do another cookery programme. Because people seem to like that.
Yeah.
There's so much cookery stuff on TV now.
I'm afraid, and again, no disrespect, when there's people who are doing well, good luck to them, etc., etc. But I just cannot understand people watching cookery programmes anymore, and even less can I understand people reading the colour supplement in most Sunday papers, which is also about cookery.
It is, and pull-outs.
Just pictures
and
of
everything.
food.
But it is this thing. I mean, we were doing a story yesterday, weren't we, about the girl who's on YouTube.
That's right.
Who does these 90-second sort of bite-sized little videos.
Yeah.
Who's made about £1 million in the last year because millions of people are watching it.
That's right.
And it's how to make shepherd's pie in 90 seconds or something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a huge. I just better not go off on a tangent too much. But one of my biggest problems and issues is, let's call it, the new technology and the way things are being seen. Because people always say, "Oh, you want to do this, you want to do that," what is starting. And I haven't the stomach for it or something, because I'm not that technical. I can just about turn the computer on and do the basics and that sort of thing.
There's an awful lot of programmes about the country file and all that kind of stuff.
Indeed,
but I don't think yet there's been a programme on bird watching, has there? Which is your speciality. And
that was my first series on my first batch of programmes.
Yeah.
God knows how long ago it is now. It's at least 10 years, I think. It was called Bird Watching with Bill Oddie.
Excellent.
And that was purely birds. And I admit I get people remember that. That's what I was saying about the different things down the years. I get some people will come up and I have to guess what they're going to say. And they'll say, "Oh, I was a huge fan of that radio show. What was it? I'm sorry, I was thinking, I love that." And then somebody else, "This is a Goodies fan."
Yes, that's right, yeah. Do the Funky Gibbon and all that.
Right. Do you know, the Goodies is something that obviously I watched when I was growing up, but also, yes, indeed. But what I see now is so much television on so many different channels. So much of the older stuff is still available. I haven't seen the Goodies around. Is it? Can you still watch it, or is there a reason for that?
It is. I don't think it's on any of the broadcast things. It was one season on something, God knows what it was, some years ago, I think now. And there are a reasonable number of sets, video sets or whatever they call them now. And
do you keep in touch with your pals from those days?
Occasionally, yes.
Yeah.
We're in touch with them the last couple of days, actually.
Right.
So, but they live.
There's a Goodies revival.
Well, there was talk of doing something that wasn't as strenuous, but it...
Right, yeah. We could all vote for that one.
Well, exactly. I gave it everything. "Oh, why don't you do that programme again?" And I said, that's like asking us to put the England World Cup winning team back together. They should be good.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yes, exactly
totally
right.
Agree.
Never ruin anything by going back and trying to recreate it.
That's right.
It's definitely of its moment.
I do like changing things. I mean, I don't like doing the same thing twice. I never have.
No. exactly.
Right.
Well, Bill, that's probably one of the fastest half hours I think we've ever done.
It certainly is.
It's flown by.
Yeah, and thank you very much indeed for bringing us in a book. That's absolutely excellent.
The book is Mr. Parry, would you like to read out the title of the book?
Yeah, the title of the book is Tales of Ludicrous Bird Gardener, Bill Oddie, OBE, I have to add.
Let's get it all
And the strap along the bottom, as you have already told us, definitely not just another book about wildlife gardening.
Absolutely.
Thank you very
Available
much
in all
indeed.
good bookstores, I would imagine, and
Well,
on
I hope
Amazon,
so.
etc.
Yeah.
Bill, thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Bill Oddie, ladies and gentlemen.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Talk Radio, we are the Two Mics. We really must pick a listography shortly, and I think we'll try and do that in the next 15 minutes or so. Mr. Parry, if you're available. Thanks to Bill Oddie for coming in.
Thank you very much
telling us
indeed.
all about his garden. Here's one from Johnny, who says, I can imagine Porky in the Big Brother house, bladderation every night. #havoc.
Do they allow you to drink in those
Well, what they
places?
seem to do is that they sort of ration the drinking.
Yeah.
So that what they do is, like, I think in some cases when I watched it a couple of years ago, you could sort of win the right to have a party or something. You had to do some task.
Yeah.
And then after that, you're allowed to... get a bottle of wine or something like that.
But you don't have to...
But I think they quite like people to get drunk, because obviously that's when they behave more erratically.
Yeah, and outrageously. But they don't make you eat, like, weird things, do they, in the Celebrity Big Brother house or anything?
No.
You know, like out in the jungle.
No, I mean, they do have little sort of challenges, I think, now,
sure,
because
sure.
I think they've realised that people quite like watching that.
Yeah,
but it's not like you're not eating witch teeth grubs or anything like that.
That's right, and testicles of animals and all that kind of stuff. No,
Yes.
no, definitely.
Now, here's one from Mark, who says, another one of my theories blown apart. I've always said you'd never see Bill and Mike in the same room together.
No, you probably wouldn't. I totally agree
well,
with
you
that.
just have. We've just sent out a picture.
Well, yes, exactly. But I mean, normally speaking, you would be allowed to say that. Now then, what I need to talk to you about, right, are developments in not just the I was going to say warfare world then, the warfare world that we've been talking about in Korea and all that kind of stuff. But what about the social networking world? What about
social network? What about it?
Well, you know, we were talking about that app before with Julia, but we haven't discussed it since.
Oh, yes. Is this the clothing app?
This is the clothing app.
Oh, yeah, I was going to try and find out if you could actually get it.
Yeah.
I haven't actually got my hands on it yet.
Now, what we were going to say is that you were going to access this. You were going to take a picture of my clothes, and then what it should do is it should tell you exactly where I got them from.
That's right.
Now,
well, I'm told it's called ASOS. Is that right?
It may well be.
What do you mean it may well be?
Well, it may well be because I don't actually subscribe to this because I have no desire to find out where other people buy their clothes.
Yeah, well, if you're going to be discussing it at some length, don't you think you ought to know the name of it?
Well, I probably do, and I will certainly find it. Now, what I was going to say is, what I find extremely odd about all of this is that when we spoke to Julia, she said, oh, why don't you just walk up to the person and say to them, where did you get your clothes from? Who in their right mind would approach somebody in the street or on a tube train or on a train or a bus and say, oh, I do like your jacket, where did you get that from?
Right.
That, to me, if somebody ever came up to me and said that, I'd say, you're a weirdo. Push off, pal.
Yeah, well, nobody would ever, trust me, nobody's ever going to walk up to you and ask you where you bought any of the stuff unless they were from the circus.
Yeah.
No,
don't be
Billy
ridiculous.
Smarts might come up to you and go, where'd you get those trousers?
No, don't be ridiculous. Now then, you're absolutely right. Let me see. Most women will admit that they have looked at someone in the street and wondered whether their outfit came from. Now, online retailer ASOS.
ASOS.
Yeah, that's one. ASOS, not what you said.
I've got it here. Well, I said it was ASOS.
ASOS, yeah, okay, ASOS.
You may pronounce it ASOS or ASOS.
Has developed a new mobile phone app that allows you to find the item.
Yeah, I've got it right here, look.
Now, yeah, but the thing... Right, you've got it
it's
there.
on my phone. I'm
now,
going to
what
download
it says here
and I'm
is...
going to point it at you and I'll see what it says.
Okay, now the downside to this is it says users surreptitiously photograph the clothes and a search tool finds them online.
Yes.
But you shouldn't go around surreptitiously taking pictures of people.
I guess
because that's invasion of privacy.
Well, I'm surprised that you would take that view, being a journalist. You know, because you've spent your life with photographers taking pictures of people surreptitiously. Haven't you?
Definitely.
But you're saying people shouldn't do it.
Well, you shouldn't do it for social gratification. When I did it, it was to unmask evil people.
Is that right?
So, for instance,
like Q Stark.
Well, Q Stark was
She's not
not an
very
evil
evil,
person, but
was she?
she was the girlfriend of the newly heroic Prince Andrew when he came back from the Falklands.
Who also wasn't evil.
No, he wasn't evil either,
But
no.
you didn't mind taking surreptitious pictures of him and her.
Because it was a matter of public interest.
I see.
And he's a member of the monarchy funded by the public,
I
okay?
see, right.
So that wasn't a problem.
Okay.
Now, on one occasion, I may have told you this story before, when I worked on the Birmingham Mail, we had to unmask an evil teacher who was,
Interfering with people?
behaving improperly with
Yes.
some of his pupils.
Yes.
So we went to his house to put this to him
Yeah.
because we knew he'd been suspended and a report had been compiled. So
Yes.
there's no doubt that there was a level
So
of
he was
suspicion.
already guilty.
Well,
in
there
your
was
eyes.
a level of suspicion. We want to ask him about it. And he opened, and we got to his house, and unfortunately, it was one of these sort of 1930s semis which had a door set back under an archway. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So my colleague, the photographer Tony Flanagan, hid in a bush in the garden.
Right.
I mean, really got into the bush
Yeah.
with a long lens.
Uh-huh.
And I knocked on the door. And the
These are in the days when you could do such things. You
Yeah,
can't
when-
actually
no,
do that
no,
now if you're
no.
on somebody's property.
No,
that's
that's
illegal.
right. That's right. That is illegal. I
Yeah.
agree. So I knocked on the door. The guy came to the door, and because he was a teacher and he was sort of he was very composed, and I said, "Look, I'm very sorry. I'm a Birmingham Mail. Don't wish to disturb you. We understand you've been suspended from work." And
You
a
weren't
report-
really sorry, though, were you?
No, I wasn't sorry at
No.
all. No. A report's been compiled into your behaviour, and I thought you might like to give your side of things. He said, "Well, it's very kind of you, but I don't think I will." I said, okay. I said, well, look, we've given you the opportunity now. You realise that, we will now publish the only one side of the report.
Yeah.
He said, I don't wish to speak. So then I thought, how am I going to make this guy? Because I could hear Tony in the bush.
Rustling in the bush.
Well, I could hear his motor drive
Oh,
going
right.
click, 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 click,
Could
click,
he
click,
not
click,
hear it?
click.
Or
Well,
maybe you didn't know the sound.
he thought it was a bird. I
Really?
think, he was sort of looking around,
Oh, yeah.
wondering, I wonder what that is.
Right.
It's a bird or a woodpecker or something.
Doesn't sound
And-
anything like that, though, really. does it?
Well. So anyway, he then closed the door, right?
Right.
So I came out and said, "Okay, Tony, everything all right?" He said, "No, I didn't get a single shot." I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, it's a recess." He said, "It was an arch,
Right.
too dark, didn't pick them up."
Right.
He said, "Knock again," and I said, "Yeah." He said, "And then take 2 steps back,
Right.
and then call him some foul name." So, because Tony's more experienced than me at these things.
Yeah. You were quite early on in your career.
Yes, it was. Yeah. It was my first evening
Before you'd
newspaper.
learned the dark arts.
Yeah, so I went and I went up there, went bam, 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 the
Yeah.
door. The guy was. I said, "Look, I'm really sorry." I said, "But actually, I took the. Do you know what you are? You are." And I called him a string of rude names.
Invective, yeah.
And he leapt forward.
Right.
Tony was absolutely right.
Right.
And went to grab me.
Yes.
Stuck his face out from
Yeah.
underneath the arch.
Yeah.
And Tony went bam, 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 bam.
Right.
And that was it. We got
Bob's
it.
your uncle.
Yeah, that's
You got
right.
the picture.
Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, getting back to these pictures.
Well, what I was going to say was that, say, for example, you're on a train.
Yes.
Or you're indeed on a bus of some description, right? Now, it's
Yeah.
quite possible, without making too much of a sort of business of it, to take a picture of somebody's, shirt or jacket
Yeah.
or hat.
If somebody took a picture of me, I'd
without
be very
them-
suspicious.
Without them knowing that you've
Yeah.
taken it, though.
Well, actually, if somebody took a picture of you and me, it may be for a reason that they listened to us on the radio or something like that. So perhaps that's not as bad.
Well, it's possible.
But an ordinary individual having a picture taken of them, and if it's a woman in particular,
Well, certainly you
she
didn't
might
want to
think
encourage
this is intimidating.
people taking pictures of women in the street. I don't
No,
think that's a good
no,
idea
I
at
totally
all.
agree.
But I'm downloading this app, which is taking forever because of the hopeless Wi-Fi we got.
When
in
you
this
do,
building.
I'll put my jacket back on, okay?
Yeah.
And my shirt,
I wouldn't bother.
quality shirt. No,
I wouldn't bother.
And
It's
then,
going to say Oxfam,
no,
isn't it?
no, you idiot! It was not going to say Oxfam. You'll be shocked at the
Really?
at the quality of the clothes I wear.
I'll tell you what it's going to say. It's going to say either Primark or Sports Direct
No.
or Oxfam.
No,
Those are
definitely
my
not.
three
Won't
choices.
say any of those, and
All right.
and you will look foolish. The other app that I've come across this week is one in a cinema.
It's in the time, by the way.
No, but don't worry, 'cause this is
No,
interesting.
No, it's not interesting.
No, it's
you
very
wait,
interesting.
You have to wait.
All right,
You are
all
guided
right, I'll tell you
by
in a
the
minute
time.
then.
This
I'll
is
tell
a
you in a
radio
minute.
show.
Tell
We
you
are
in a minute.
guided by the time.
Okay.
This is Talk Radio.
Okay.
The 21st century dream team of dialogue, debate, and discourse. The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
This is Talk Radio. We are the Two Mics. We've got to pick a listography because it's going to take place in about 45 minutes. This is where we tell 3 stories about a particular subject. I have downloaded this ASOS app, by the way.
Right.
But there doesn't appear to be any way of knowing exactly how to take a picture of your clothes and then find out where they're from. So we'll have to do a bit more research on that.
Yes.
A couple of suggestions for listography. Ali says about the top 3 people you interviewed who you expected to be a nightmare but were actually sweetness and light.
Yeah.
which is one suggestion.
Yes.
There's another one of sort of the other way around, people who you thought would be sweetness and light, but actually turned out to be a nightmare. I'm not sure that that's going to be something we could do.
I don't think so, no.
We've also had ones about your favourite destinations for a holiday, which I think we've done. Probably his 3 most bizarre celebrity encounters over the years. 3 scariest times in your life. I quite like that one.
Yeah, I like that.
3 scariest times in your life. That comes from Wrong Star.
Yeah, I like that.
Should we say that's what we're going to do
3
then?
scariest.
Yeah.
That's the one. Very good indeed. Excellent.
So we'll do that. And just remind you, it's not a competition.
No.
So you don't have to look upon it as something you have to win.
Oh, I don't have to be more scared than you are.
No, that's what I mean.
Just the scariest ones. Listen, I want to thank Tracy B, because it's wonderful when I get exonerated from, the accusations you make against me. Just to let you know, Porky is absolutely correct on Chris Christopherson.
Oh, yeah.
He was on stage with Sinead O'Connor.
I never said you were incorrect.
And she's even sent me the YouTube footage.
Yes, I saw that.
Yes.
But I never suggested you were wrong.
What do you mean you've seen it? You saw it and you still kept questioning whether it's Chris Christopherson.
No, I saw it after I'd said that. No, what I said was you'd care to follow what actually happened in reality as opposed to what goes on between your ears in your world, a weird little sort of fantasy world.
Yeah.
What I actually said was that somebody yesterday questioned whether you were right and whether it was Kenny Rogers, not Chris Christopherson.
No, it wasn't Kenny Rogers.
Okay.
Now, the other one here comes from Ben, and this is marvellous as well. I feel the tide is turning my way on this talk radio station.
The tide is turning your way?
The tide is turning my way.
Did you sense that the tide was against you?
No, it's just that, you are such
so paranoid, aren't you?
You are such a bulk that when you jump in, the tide sort of flows in my direction and I have to turn it round.
Yes.
But Ben says, second time in a week that MG has tried to pull Porky up on the professor title
when you
to
call
a
people
guest.
prof, yes.
But as usual, Porky got through it. Bravo, Porky. He always wangles it. Thank you very much indeed.
I don't think that's a compliment.
Yeah.
The fact that you always wangle it
No.
that you're a bit of a dodgy character.
No. It's here, another one here from Martin. He says, well done, Porky, yet another professor outwitted by the Porky theorem. So you see, people realise that
theorem?
Well, people realise my intellect
is
is equivalent to that of a professor.
Really?
On nearly every occasion.
Would you like us to call you Professor Parry?
Sorry?
Or just Prof for short?
Yeah, the Prof, yeah.
Now, have you ever been to the Isle of Skye?
No, but I'd love to.
Would you?
Yes.
Well, don't bother, because it's full.
Well,
apparently.
yeah, I've been hearing this. In fact, I saw a programme on this a couple of weeks ago, and I thought I didn't realise that all these huge cruise liners actually call there, and it's one of Europe's most sought after locations now for cruise line passengers from the continent.
Yes, well, you'll be delighted to know that we've got an expert coming on right now called Rob Ware, who is from Sky Connect. So he'll be able to tell us why Sky's so popular and if there's any room left. Rob, a very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you guys from the Isle of Skye, and it's great to see you two chaps getting on so well.
Thank you very much. Well, we do famously. Now, I used to live in Glasgow, Rob, and I went to Skye many a time, and one of my favourite restaurants of all time is, of course, there, called the Three Chimneys. Is it still thriving?
Absolutely, yeah. My fellow director at Sky Connect is Shirley Spear, who last year was awarded the OBE, who founded the Three Chimneys 32 years ago now, and has continued to receive worldwide accolades for the quality of its restaurant and indeed its rooms. So
it's a brilliant place.
Brilliant.
It's still going strong. Yeah, very much.
Just for your information, Porky, if you ever go there, it's best if you can get a room there as well, because it's quite a long way out of the main part of the island.
Super.
That's right. It's in an isolated part of the northwest.
Yes.
The restaurant, the Three Chimneys, but the accommodation is called the House Over Bar, and I'm sure Shirley and her team would be delighted to welcome you.
No, listen, my main reason for saying it is because we both quite enjoy a glass of wine with our lunch.
We certainly do.
If you're going to go there in a car, you either take a driver with you or you stay the night.
It'd be fantastic. Now, can I please ask you, Rob, how can anybody who relies on the tourist trade be worried about having too many visitors?
Well, Skye is very much open for business and always has been a hugely successful and popular island for generations. The last couple of years have indeed seen quite big increases in tourism. This is because tourism trends are changing throughout the UK, throughout the world, in fact, and certainly throughout Scotland. And I should say at the outset, this isn't just about the Isle of Skye. Many parts of Scotland, particularly Edinburgh at the moment, and indeed Glasgow, Inverness, many of the very popular areas in Scotland are working hard to provide a service to tourism and actually are surviving very well. But Skye is actually the second most popular area of Scotland to visit, and you say from your own visits, you'll know that it's a hugely varied island with some iconic scenery that in recent years has been used for many many movies. We have some fabulous restaurants with food and drink, local food and drink, from our seafood to our beef, etc.
The langoustine is particularly good, I'd have to say.
Absolutely. Prawns that most people know it by. And from here in Skye, you can have a langoustine that's caught in the afternoon. It's on your table in the restaurant in the evening.
Wow.
And we have a huge range of things to see and do for people. So the message from us is that, yes, Skye, we welcome visitors all year round, and the season is certainly extending, and this year has been certainly particularly record levels, but it is open for business. And whilst there have been, as you were alluding to earlier on, difficulties at times with certain parts of the island, this is because people are now coming for shorter stays.
Well, it's the police, isn't it, Rob, who are saying don't come to Skye unless you've got a room. Hang on. They said unless you've got a room for the night, they said don't come.
No, it hasn't been as direct as that. It's the advice from Police Scotland is to say do book ahead, because there are times, certainly this week particularly. Yesterday was probably the busiest day of the year, because the Isle of Skye Highland Games was taking place in the main town of Portree. So all of us involved in tourism management here in Skye Connect, is the island's destination management organisation, are working with a number of key stakeholders, including the Highland Council, local business.
Well, hang on. Are they working with Sergeant Crawford? Because he seems to be the guy that's issuing
Bruce Crawford.
Yeah.
Sergeant
Crawford, who seems to be the guy that's telling people don't bother coming if you haven't got a room.
I think that's been misreported, to be honest.
Well, I'm looking at his quotes, Rob.
Yeah, but they are concerned, obviously, that visitor numbers in certain parts of the island, bearing in mind this is, and as a visitor yourself, some of the key iconic locations, the scenic natural places, are buckling under the volumes of traffic, because simply an island like Skye doesn't as yet have the infrastructure to cope with this massive increase.
Yeah.
And it is the key message is really, Skye's open for business, but think ahead, plan ahead. Don't try and expect to come onto the island in the middle of the peak summer and expect to get a B&B or a hotel, because many of these have been booked out.
Months before, probably. I mean, Rob, what about the presence of these cruise liners? Because that must be a fairly recent phenomenon, is it? I didn't even know you had a harbour big enough to accommodate them.
Well, in the last 5 or 6 years, there'll be 27 cruise ships visiting Portree this year, and one or two others coming to some of the other ports on the island, particularly Armadale on the Sound of Slate just across from the mainland.
Yeah.
They do come in various sizes. They do bring a big economy into the local area, because visitors come and have day excursions, and they go to places like Dunvegan Castle, Elandonnan Castle, Clandonald, and across to Portree itself. And so, it is a useful addition to the island's economy, but on some of those days, there are no facilities within the port itself to the ships to come and tie up alongside, as there are indeed in all.
And presumably the people on the ships stay on the ships overnight, don't they? They don't expect to have rooms.
No, generally they'll come in. It'll arrive into Portree Bay, 7 o'clock in the morning on the tide. They'll have the day on shore, and then it'll sail. Most vessels will sail about 5 or 6 in the evening.
Oh, I see.
So it gives them an opportunity to cover most of Skye, or those that want to go to some of the iconic locations, or to go to our museums, or go to have a nice lunch somewhere.
Yeah.
Plenty of things to do for visitors, both from cruise ships and those that might come by.
So would you say, Rob, that it's a good time for somebody maybe to go and open a hotel or something in Skye, maybe to accommodate a few more people? Well,
development has to be measured as well, because obviously the more people come, both the government and the Highland Council as the unitary authority have got to ensure that the infrastructure is in place. So, certainly record levels this year and again from last year. But it is a key question is obviously how much can an island of this size take? Bearing in mind, though, that it is for a relatively short period in the summer months, really from mid-June through to sort of the end of August, and then it starts to taper off with children having gone back to school, and the grannies and the granddads coming and doing their trips. But I must say that tourism trends have changed. The rise of Airbnb, which obviously you'll be familiar with, has gone up phenomenally on an island like Skye. At the end of 2015, there were just 54 properties registered with Airbnb on the island. There's now over 350. Wow. And people are renting out accommodation from single rooms to whole houses, to flats, to yurts, to caravans, even tents and garden sheds.
Golly, a garden shed.
You can even come and stay in a garden shed in Skye. And
over the shed to Skye.
Indeed, you can even stay in a shepherd's hut or a Mongolian yurt. So
yurt sounds good.
And obviously, the tourism industry here, affects everybody. Tourism is everyone's business, and it doesn't matter whether you have a cottage, a B&B, or a hotel. You be a plumber, you be a decorator, they are all involved in the tourism industry.
Yeah.
So it is a key economic driver, but as you're saying, there does now need to be a strategy that looks 10, 20, 30 years ahead of how we can cope with that. And it's likely, and the key reasons, guys, that Scotland has become so popular is that it's still regarded as a very, very safe destination.
Oh, absolutely.
Great stuff.
Is it great in the winter as well, Rob? Because I prefer weather. I like, the rolling
Don't worry, it's not that hot
clouds.
in the summer in Scotland.
No, but I like the winter. You're still open all through the winter.
Absolutely, and the most important thing, there's no midges around.
Exactly.
All of the majority of the hotels and a lot of self-catering cottages and guest houses are open throughout the year. Obviously, some of the main visitor attractions in terms of castles and art galleries and the wildlife trips tend to stop. But no, the island is open all year round, and we're actively trying to extend the season by improving ferry services. You may also be aware that there's been a campaign over the last 3 or 4 years to restore air services to Broadford Airport, which is the second largest village on the island, and that would be planned to do something like 2 return services a day from either Edinburgh or Glasgow. The people, for example, come up from London, could leave City Airport on a Friday afternoon, say at 3 o'clock. They could fly to Glasgow, connect to Skye, and they can be having dinner at the Three Chimneys at 7:30 in the evening.
There used to be a boat plane that took off from the Clyde that went up to Loch Lomond. Does that go anywhere near Skye?
That's right. They did tours last year, and again, a little more limited this year. It's the Loch Lomond Seaplanes offering these Isle of Skye tours. But a scheduled service, which has long been asked for, and isn't a huge amount of money to invest by both either the council or government or support from public funds, to then operate a twice-a-day service, because the demand is there, particularly not just the high end, but the business community. Skye has a lot of small businesses. It's the largest island in the Inner Hebrides, and it, in fact, is the only island in Scotland, large inhabited island in Scotland, that doesn't have an air service directly to the mainland as you would have.
But it's got a bridge, I suppose, as well, hasn't it? Rob, listen, we're going to have to leave it there, I'm afraid, because we're out of time. Rob, thank you very much indeed. Rob Ware there from the Isle of Skye. Talks quite a lot about it, doesn't he?
What about spending Christmas on the Isle of Skye? Wouldn't that be brilliant?
Hey? Well, you want to do that?
Well, I might think about it, I might take the family there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, you know what their local whiskey is there? Talisker.
Jura.
No, Talisker. Jura's a different island.
Jura
is a different island, you clank. Talisker. In fact, Pauline Hove's asking, what about the whiskey, Mike? What about my whiskey? I'll ask you about that coming up.
Yeah.
As you talk radio.
Yeah.
Madness, they call it madness.
This is Talk Radio. We are the Two Mics. Coming up a little bit later on in this hour, we're going to do listography, which is all about scary stories, which I suppose will be related to our journalistic careers.
Yeah, I
more
suppose
than,
so. Or
things that happened when you were a child, maybe. I mean, could be.
Yeah,
could be something like that, something mysterious.
You know, the monster that came out of the wardrobe and all that kind of stuff.
Was there a monster in the wardrobe where you lived?
No.
I don't want to hear those kind of tales.
Just using an example.
I see, yes.
Yeah.
Well, you know, sometimes things can happen to you when you're a child, which is so frightening that they stay with you for the rest of your life.
That's right.
But let me ask you this question once again, because we got to it just before the news from Pauline Hove. What about the whiskey, Mike? What about the whiskey, Mike?
Well,
where is it?
Now,
you claimed to me, that you gave me that bottle of whiskey yesterday, but despite the fact that you filled it full of stale brown tea.
Well, that was just for effect. That was just for a picture.
You told me that the whiskey had been decanted out of the bottle.
Yes.
So where is it?
Well, it wasn't decanted out of that bottle. That's the problem.
What?
Well, I had to get that bottle from a friendly
so what?
publican.
So what are you telling me then? So am I going to get any whiskey at all?
Well, I went to get you one last night, but then found it's £34 a bottle.
Well, some of it is, yeah.
No, that particular brand.
Oh, that one, yeah, okay. Well, so what's wrong with that?
Well, I thought it was too expensive for a birthday
34
present.
quid?
Yeah.
It's too expensive.
Well, yeah.
Have you gone mad?
No.
You have no idea how much I paid for dinner last night?
No, but
It was a lot more than that.
Well, I'm sure it was, yeah, but I mean, it's your birthday, not mine, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but people bought me presents, though.
Well, I will get you a bottle of whiskey.
Well, then, if you can't afford £34, right, or you think somehow it's too much for you to spend, why don't you get me a cheaper one? If you go to one of your favourite supermarkets, right, they always have one on special.
Well, there was the Johnny Walker on special at £20.
No, it has to be a malt. Johnny Walker's a blend.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Right, so it has to be a malt.
What's the difference? So who cares?
The difference is the malts are better.
Yeah.
That's the difference,
All
right? I know you don't
well,
have any...
I'll sort it out.
Any sort of palate.
I will sort it out. Now,
Really?
listen, I was telling you about this other app, okay?
Yeah.
And this is in the
We've
cinema.
got another guest waiting, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think we should talk to our
I
guest.
think we should talk to our
Yeah,
guest.
so do
His
I.
name is Andy Lound.
And I can tell you my fascinating story later.
Oh, okay. He's from the UK Planetary Society.
Yes, great.
You know that song that you like to sing about calling
occupants of interplanetary, quite extraordinary craft.
Andrew is in Birmingham, however, which is very much earthbound. Andrew, a very good afternoon to you.
Hello, how are you doing?
Very well
very
indeed.
thank
Sorry
you.
to keep you waiting, but
Oh,
Porky's
that's
not
all right.
an easy man to shut up, to be honest.
No, I should give you the scotch and get sorted.
Well,
Yeah,
really,
well,
I mean, there are some things more important, I'm afraid, than talking about, future colonisation of the planets.
Yeah.
But we found some more planets, apparently.
Yeah, this is right. I mean, we've got what's called super Earths, which are planets which are similar to the Earth in the sense of physicality. They're rocky, metallic worlds, but they're very, very large.
Yeah.
And these have been discovered orbiting a star called Tau Ceti, which Star Trek fans will remember Tau Ceti because it appears in their series.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a sun-like star, so it's very similar to that, except it has planets going around it, and a couple of planets which are what's called in the Goldilocks zone.
Mm-hmm.
They're not too hot, they're not too cold, they're just right, sort of thing. Essentially, liquid water can exist on the surface.
Yes.
And because of their position, then there's the possibility of carbon chemistry, the chemistry that creates life and all the exciting things that happen on the Earth. So there is a possibility that these worlds could be habitable.
Mm-hmm. Habitable, yeah, but I mean, the point is, I hope I'm not, just completely dissing this story. If they're habitable, but they're 12 light years away, they're never going to be inhabited by humans, are they, Andy?
Andrew, yeah,
Sorry,
70.8 trillion miles away. So there's quite a distance, and we're not going to be able to simply go out there. Very simply, the bus services are going to be pretty long running to there.
Yeah.
But I think the interesting thing from our point of view is, as we study these worlds from this distance, we'll be able to do several things. First of all, at some point in a very close future, within 10 years, we'll be able to visually look at these worlds now with the new technologies. Yeah. So we'll be able to actually see if they have atmospheres, if they're likely to have extraterrestrial life on them. But the thing we'll obviously point radio telescopes and things like that towards them to see if there are any signals coming from them, from intelligent beings that could be existing on the surface.
Yes.
And the important thing then would be is we're narrowing down the possibilities that life can exist out there, because at the moment it's still a theory. We've got life on Earth, which is obviously in space, but is there any life further out there, and is there possibilities of it out there? And that's really the big question we're trying to do. And by finding these worlds, it's sort of narrowing down the basis that sooner or later we will find living organisms in space itself.
I get all that, but how, the point I'm trying to make is that it costs an awful lot of money to try and make contact with a planet 12 light years away. Right. And aren't we just wasting our time and our effort? Because, as you quite rightly say, we're never going to get there. If we find out that there is, some form of life on these planets, haven't we then got to rely on them being more intelligent than us to get to us because they've invented a machine that can travel at the speed of light?
If we're thinking of physically travelling, then obviously you're right. One of us is going to have to develop the technologies to physically get there. Yeah. But there is a more important issue here, and the fact is that we would have found life on another world. That is the big question here.
Right.
Because then we would probably have a look at ourselves, very importantly, on this planet, and stop looking at ourselves perhaps as individual countries and think of ourselves more now as a human species.
Yeah.
And it might have a very positive effect on the planet itself here. And I think it's the effect on the culture of this planet itself which would have a major effect on. Hopefully,
I'm not sure Kim Jong-un would go along with the
the
world community.
Well, maybe you could talk to him and offer him his own planet. Maybe that would work best.
Yeah, it may do. Yeah,
it may be that we can't all coexist on the same
exactly.
piece of Earth. Now, in terms of when scientists say things, Andrew, like it could sustain life. that doesn't necessarily mean that it could
You mean the
sustain
amoeba?
No,
human life, does it?
No, I mean you're absolutely right. Well, there's no guarantee, of course. I mean, this is one of the big questions we need to try and answer. And it's one of the reasons we're going to Mars and we're looking at the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. Is even though you've got conditions under the surface of the moons of Saturn and Jupiter where life, it's possible, could exist, does life have to take place? Does carbon chemistry have to end up creating living organisms? And that's the question we really need to know. And that decides how unique we are. One of the unique factors about our planet, for instance, is we have a large moon associated with us. This is quite an important element because the dual gravitational effect of the Earth and the Moon throws an awful lot of energy into this planet. It creates the tides, it stirs up that water, it stirs up the inners of our planet itself and creates a lot of energy, which in itself is necessary for life to actually form. You have to have this energy input. If these worlds, for instance, out there don't have large moons, they may be actually quite inert on their surface. They may have all the elements for life, but it may not actually start. And that's a very important thing. And it's a good point you've made there, because that is one of the fundamental questions we need to know. Is life always going to happen if you've got the right elements there? Or is there something unique that created or helped life form on this planet?
But what's the point of discovering a planet that could sustain life but doesn't have life?
Well, that would be the interesting thing from the science point of view, because then we were looking at the situation is what makes this planet, our planet, particularly unique. Why did it happen here? It's why we actually compare planets to each other. Like Venus, for instance, is very similar to the size of the Earth. It's got a very dense atmosphere. No life could exist on the surface there at all because it has the greenhouse effect, which has run out of total control and creating a real problem. Mars, on the other hand, has gone the other way. It's a very cold planet. Its internal energies have stopped. So why has Earth particularly stayed the way it has? Could life itself only happen on a planet which really has a series of factors that happens to it, which are probably quite rare?
You're absolutely right. That one that's got the dense atmosphere, by the way, send my broadcasting partner MG there, because he'd be suited absolutely. He'd
Well, you see, the trouble
well.
is, poor old Porky here is a bit of a flat earther. He's not one who encourages scientific discovery. He'd prefer it all if we didn't go and find anything out at all about space. He thinks the exploration of space is a complete waste of money and time. That's what you've previously said, have you not?
No, but I've also previously said that I do believe, and you may agree or not as a scientist, Andy, that one of these days man will be able to invent a machine that can travel through time. All we've got to do is produce a rocket which can go as fast as the speed of light, and we are time travellers, aren't we?
Well, yes. I mean, it's quite an interesting concept you're putting up there, because in theory we can't travel faster than the speed of light in the three-dimensional space.
Yes.
Because that would break the laws of physics. However, it doesn't break the laws of physics if we could warp space around us.
Yes, that's exactly
and
what
therefore
I'm
we
saying.
could actually do that. And then, which is strangely enough, many people talk about the Starship Enterprise. The Starship Enterprise actually warps space around it. It's why it's called warp drive, and that enables it to fling itself around. Time travel itself, I mean, we have great Stephen Hawking himself actually talk about the possibility that time travel is a possibility, and that is quite a fantastic thought. It might be that time travel could not be in the sense, for instance, we could go back through time in our own timeline. There's a possibility there are multiple timelines, and what you would do is swap timelines. And therefore you actually end up going through a parallel time. And that's quite possible. It's a question of engineering. And I do believe we're at a stage now where that's becoming an engineering issue. And it may be 1,000 years into the future before we're able to achieve these things. But again, it's like travelling to this planet over 70 trillion miles away.
7.8 trillion.
Yeah, I mean, what you're going to have to do there in order to do it, it is almost like time travel, because if we're looking at that planet now, we're looking at that planet as it looked 12 years ago.
Yes.
Because it's taken that long for light to reach us.
Yes.
So we're already looking back in time physically.
Yes.
To actually travel there to get to the situation where it's that planet's present, we're technically travelling backwards in time here, because, of course, it would take 12 years for that light to actually reach us.
Exactly. I mean, we see exploding stars sometimes, don't we, in fantastic pictures from high-density telescopes, which happened 2 or 3 years ago, don't we?
Well, yes, in many cases we're looking at events that happened maybe even 1 million years ago.
1 million years ago.
But then that's kind of a philosophical question, isn't it? Are you travelling in time if you're looking at something that happened a long time ago?
Yes. Yes, it's a very important element, because when we're looking into space, we're always looking into the past. which is one of these strange paradoxes. We're always looking at the universe as it was, not as it is. And that's something that we were going to have to come. And if you're travelling through time, those people who've seen the film Interstellar, one of the greatest films ever made, because it shows you the physics perfectly, absolutely perfectly, where it does become a major issue on time travel.
Yeah, but the trouble is, though, if you come back from travelling as they did in Interstellar, you end up behind a bookcase. Which is no good to anyone.
Seen the film.
You're literally being left on the shelf there.
There you are.
Andy, finally, what do you think about one of my great theories? That is, we go and find some of the worst criminals, who've ever been born, who've got life sentences in some jail somewhere. You put them in a spaceship, just fire it. Just fire it towards the Milky Way.
I'll vote for that.
Yeah, exactly. And say, look, you can either spend the next 40 years in San Quentin, or you're going, in this spaceship for at least 3 years, and you'll still be able to communicate with us when you get wherever you're going. I mean, wouldn't that be exploratory?
I think that would be a good idea. I'd buy into that one.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Andrew, thank you very much indeed. Andrew Lound, who is, of course, from the UK Planetary Society, talking about space. And I wonder who would... there's been a movie made about that, I'm sure.
What,
we'll talk about that.
Putting criminals in space?
Yeah, putting them in space. And do you remember there was... I think they had those... boots which were magnetised, and when they wanted them to stop moving around, they just switched on the electromagnet,
and they
couldn't move,
floor.
and they stuck to the floor.
Yeah, excellent. Just taking the boots off.
And when they wanted them to move around, they just let the magnet off.
Right.
It's great. Yeah. It's Talk Radio.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Right, now then, stay tuned to Talk Radio, because from 4, John Nicholson brings you a drive time show, and it is packed with top guests. And when I say top guests, I mean top guests. First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond.
He's not the First Minister of Scotland anymore, is he?
Sorry?
I thought he wasn't the First
He's
Minister
not
of Scotland.
the First Minister of Scotland.
He's
The former First Minister.
Former First Minister
Former
of Scotland.
First Minister of Scotland, you're absolutely right. Former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond, will be talking to John about the recurring issue of Scottish independence. And Labour activist and transport writer Christian Walmar will be going through the stories that are trending this afternoon.
He used to be a big railway expert, didn't he, Christian Walmar? He's a massive train enthusiast.
Walmar?
Yeah, Christian Walmar.
Where do I know that name from?
You know him because he used to come on as a guest to talk about the railways.
Did he?
He's a very knowledgeable man about the railways,
Okay,
but he's also now a Labour activist. Also, Rebecca Perfect will be telling us about which new film releases are worth checking out this weekend. Don't miss Live at Drive with special host John Nicholson from 4 until 7, only here on Talk Radio.
Absolutely.
How come the music stopped there, by the way?
And, of course, the current First Minister of Scotland...
is Nicola Sturgeon.
Wee Bernie.
Well, I don't think you should be in any way detrimental speaking about her, because I'm quite a good friend of Nicola
I know
Sturgeon.
you're quite a good friend, but...
I also know Alex Salmond quite well, actually.
Yes, I know. A particular satirical magazine, should we say, calls Nicola Sturgeon Wee Bernie.
Do they?
Yeah, well, they...
Why?
Look, satirical magazines call all sorts of politicians all sorts of funny names, don't
Jim's
they?
got a name for you as well, by the way.
What's that?
He's tweeted in. He says, Porky, you tightwad. £34 for a malt whiskey is hardly excessive, given that you pay a cabbie £50 to pick up cheap plonk.
Well, you know...
That's true. For anyone who doesn't know that story, this is when you previously admitted that when you sometimes run out of wine in the Chez Parry in the penthouse, you basically ring up the local cab company.
I do.
You give the guy 50 quid, right, and you send him out to your local cost cutters, where he picks up, about 3 bottles of that horrendous hooch that you drink.
But it's not cost
for about
cutters.
$9.99.
No, it's usually...
he brings it back and you give him the change.
No, it's usually a late Tesco or something like that, honestly.
Well, you won't pay 34 quid for a decent bottle of malt whiskey for me.
Well, you've got it's horses for courses sort of thing, isn't it? I don't remember you ever buying anything for my birthday, so...
No, I don't really. I don't think I ever did.
No, I don't think I ever was.
No, I did tell you that I'm going to give you actually a present this year.
Oh, yes?
Come Christmas time, because you're always a bit mysterious about when your birthday is, right?
No, I'm not. It's 29th of December.
What is it?
29th of December.
Okay, well, I mean, it's the same as Christmas, so you're not going to get 2 presents, right? You'll get 1 present, because it will be Christmas, right? And I'm sure I've given you a Christmas present.
But I've had this all my life, that's for Christmas and your birthday.
It's not my fault.
See, I was a deprived child in that sense.
Well, that says a lot about why you are bitter and twisted in the way that you are.
Wouldn't it be great to go to Skye and spend Christmas there?
Well, you've already said that.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic.
Well,
I just mentioned
I think it's a great idea for you to go there.
To the people outside in the gallery.
The people.
Our people. Our production
I didn't know we had people.
The young people. And they all said, it'd be brilliant. I said, just imagine that roaring fire in the grate, And,
well, do you know, Skye is where I told you when I was still smoking in those days, and I had a cottage once in Skye.
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful kind of old, it was a new cottage actually, but it was in an old part of the island.
Yeah.
And I went outside for a smoke.
Yeah.
And I heard this kind of rustling and noise and I looked around, and as my eyes got acclimatised to the light, because it was dark, there were these beautiful 10 or so red deer
Wow.
Standing all around me.
Yeah.
No further away than about 10 feet.
They look menacing.
They were just staring at me.
About to attack?
Well,
No.
they're very big, though. I mean, their shoulders were more or less at the same height as my shoulders.
That's quite... And they had, like, stag-type headdress type thing.
Stag-type headdress.
Right, you know what I'm talking
What do you
about,
mean,
the
antlers?
Yeah, antlers. Yeah.
A couple of them did.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't all have it.
That's very impressive.
But it was beautiful.
Well, that's probably because some of them were women who don't have antlers. Yeah.
Females.
Well, females. Does. That's it, yeah. Oh, dear.
Yeah.
A female,
But I was kind
dear.
of transfixed.
Ray,
All right.
a drop
All
of
right.
golden sun.
Stop.
Yeah.
You don't have to sing, you know. It's
now,
not,
that
it's
other
not
app I was
required.
going to tell you about. Right, the other app I was
Oh,
going to
yeah,
tell
I
you
haven't still worked out this app, by the way.
Yeah, okay. We'll try and keep working that out. I'll tell you about the other app that we're talking about. You know, so when I go to the cinema now, I take a really good seat.
Oh, yeah.
And it comes with a table to put your wine on. You can drink all the way through the film from the bar outside, right?
I think there's a cinema like that in Mile End.
Is there?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
So what happens is, of course, you get the taste and you think, no, I need to go out for another one.
You
They
get
don't-
the taste?
Yes, of the wine.
This is an alcoholic speaking.
Well, you know. And the thing is, they don't
You know,
have
we've still got some wine from yesterday if you want one.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Well, no, I wouldn't do that, obviously.
No.
Well, not until the end of the show.
No,
and,
I wouldn't either.
And they don't have a waitress service because it would disturb other people watching the film. So they
True.
just say, just come out any time, get yourself another glass,
Okay.
you know. So now, and sometimes if you had a few, you then sometimes need a comfort break during the film.
Uh-huh.
Now, this app is brilliant.
Comfort break.
Yes.
There's an Americanism for it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, you know,
Comfort break.
It's a polite word, isn't it? So, supposing I was watching Jason Bourne, which I've bought the DVD of, but I haven't
Yes.
watched yet, but I'm
Okay.
going to do that next time I go to
I've
the
got the whole
coast.
set, you know. I got it for Christmas.
I think I have as well.
Somebody bought me the whole
I
Bourne
think I think I
movies.
found the whole set the other day. I don't know where it came from. I think I bought it for somebody for Christmas.
Yeah.
Decided it was too good for them and kept it for
Do you know
myself.
there's a guy working here called Jason Bourne?
No, I
There
didn't
is.
know.
I was looking through the emails the other day.
No, I didn't
Imagine
know
having that name. It's great, isn't it?
Jason Bourne.
Jason Bourne.
It'd be like having like James Bond.
Yeah, I know.
Isn't it? Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what happens is this app. What you do is
Uh-huh.
you tell the app what film you're watching.
Yes.
And what the app does is it works out the 5 minutes of least activity in the film when least decisions are made.
Right.
Because you never want to miss a crucial part of the film.
Yeah.
Particularly in Jason Bourne,
Yeah.
where you find out who is, stitching up who and
Yes.
who's stabbing somebody in the back
Right.
in the CIA and all that.
Oh, yeah.
And this app actually says, in 4 minutes' time, you can take a 3-minute break from the film
Right.
without missing any significant detail.
And would it also perhaps fill you in on what you've missed as well?
Yeah, well, I suppose so, yeah. But it says you won't miss anything if you go
Right.
out for these 3 minutes or 4 minutes.
why not?
Which I think is brilliant.
They could do the same for this show, couldn't they? So, like when Porky Vision comes on, you can you take a little walk around the garden.
Well, that's a bit harsh, isn't it? Maybe next week. Maybe the apple's safe from 1 to 4 after you've gone on holiday. For the next 3 hours, you will miss nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Stay tuned. Wardy says, did that fella just quote Star Trek as a basis for the possibility of time travel?
Yes.
#Plank. Well, why wouldn't you?
Time
he
warp.
also quoted from Interstellar, which is, I mean, we've spoken to scientists before who have said that actually people at NASA watched Interstellar and said these movie producers have actually done what we've been trying to do for years.
What did they do?
Well, they created a mechanism and explained how you could go basically forward and backwards in time by using a fifth dimension and by going through wormholes in space and all this kind of thing.
Golly.
And they'd been talking about how to do that, but without really kind of imagining it, if you know what I mean.
So the producers somehow obtained scientific information not available to NASA.
Well,
is that right?
what they did was they took NASA's kind of knowledge, but they turned it into a visual thing, so that NASA could say, that's how it would look.
Yeah,
and they said it was actually brilliant.
I see.
Robert says, Mike, that movie you just mentioned was called Face Off, starring Nicolas Cage and John Travolta. I don't think it was, actually.
Face Off?
Face Off is a great movie. It's the one where one guy, Nicolas Cage, gets a face transplant to look like John Travolta.
Wow.
And John Travolta likewise has one to look like Nicolas Cage.
Why?
Because it's some kind of weird thing where one of them's a wanted criminal.
Right.
And he wants to look like somebody else so that he obviously can't be arrested.
Yes,
but then he can carry on his evil doings.
I see. Okay.
Looking like somebody else.
Okay.
The 21st century dream team of dialogue, debate and discourse. The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Monsters, super creeps, keep me running scared. Scary monsters, super creeps, keep me running.
David Bowie there.
Yeah, a bit of David Bowie.
Scary Monsters.
Scary Monsters.
As in Scary Monsters in the Wardrobe.
Yes, absolutely.
We're doing listography, which is where we both tell a story, or
Yes.
3 stories perhaps, or
Yes.
sometimes 2.
Yes.
It depends on how long and long-winded they become.
Yeah.
On a subject close to our hearts that's been chosen by one of the Twitterers. And 3 scariest moments.
Yes.
Is what they've asked for. So do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, I'll kick it off. It's a story which some will have heard before, perhaps not in great detail.
Uh-huh.
But when I was in Libya and the Americans attacked Tripoli, and I was in the hotel that got hit.
Yes.
That was very frightening. I mean, you can look back on it now and you can say, you know...
You can tell the whole daring do type story, can't you?
Yeah. I mean, look, the thing that most... I once heard this from a soldier on a battlefield. The thing that most frightens everybody in battle is the sound of explosions, because that's what shatters your nerves, it shatters your eardrums, shatters your confidence.
And nothing prepares you for the noise.
Nothing prepares you for the noise. And the first missile that hit the hotel was so loud, I thought it was all over.
Yeah.
Because the lights go out at the same time.
Right.
So I was flung about 12 feet across the room, and you hit the other wall, and the lights have gone out and start, and you wonder if you're dead.
And is there all dust and stuff going
Dust is flying everywhere, but it was the noise. The noise was so loud. I've never heard noise like it, and therefore I feared the worst. I thought, if I've never heard a noise like that on Earth, living, maybe I'm somewhere else now. And you're stunned and concussed and all that.
Right.
And it took
was there another one afterwards?
There was a collection of them, but it was the first one that really gets you. You know, the bang. It's a horrendous noise, and I can understand now why. In the First World War, soldiers were found wandering around the battlefield and they had shell shock and they were shot for cowardice because they were so disorientated by the noise of shells, and they might have been standing next to a gun carriage that had blown up or something like that. Very frightening.
Absolutely right. Mine was similarly in a war zone. It was in Bosnia.
Yeah.
And it was actually when I was coming back down the mountain, because I used to go, you'd fly out and you'd stay in Split for a while, which is on the coast of Croatia, but then you would drive up into where the fighting was going on.
Yes.
Which was on a road made by the Royal Engineers.
Yes.
Because they would go through the mountains
Sure.
and all that. And they always said, whatever you do, don't drive alone as a journalist, because there's people that are going to hijack the car.
Yeah.
They'll want to steal your equipment. They might even kill you, blah, blah, blah. So you'd always go with somebody else in a convoy. And I was coming back down the mountain with some British Army guys, and they all had Land Rovers. I had a Lada, which was 4-wheel drive, but it was what they called a soft car.
Yes.
So if somebody shot you, basically there was no way you could stop the bullets.
Yeah.
Anyway, they kind of started racing off because they thought it was a jolly jape, because they didn't really, some of them didn't really like journalists that much.
Yes.
And they thought it'd be great if we just lose this guy.
Yeah.
And I was driving as fast as I could in this Lada, and I thought, I don't want to go off the road because if I crash. They're ahead of me, and there's nobody behind me.
That's right.
And they might not even know I've crashed.
That's right.
So I was desperately trying to get as close to them as possible. They were shooting off. Anyway, we came around this corner, and there was one of those checkpoints,
Yes.
with a lower and a boom that gets lowered.
Yeah.
And people had said to me, if you see somebody trying to lower the boom on you, just keep going. Don't stop, because some of the people at these checkpoints are real bandits, right?
Yeah.
And so they went through, and there was about maybe a 10-second gap where I was coming. The boom was getting lower and lower and lower. And there was a guy standing there with a rifle, and I just didn't stop. I just kept going. Looked in the rearview mirror, and I could see that he had lifted his rifle and was pointing at my car.
Yeah.
And in the rearview mirror, I saw this guy pointing his rifle at me.
Right.
And I thought, what am I going to do now?
Exactly.
And they'd always said the best thing to do then is to try and sort of fishtail the car a little bit so
That's
they can't
right.
shoot you. So I tried to do a bit of that. Almost lost control of the car.
Yeah.
Managed to get away, but it was terribly frightening.
Did you hear a shot?
He didn't shoot, no.
Right.
I think he was just trying to scare me.
Yeah,
But the
sure.
scariest part of the story was actually about a week later when I got back to Britain and discovered that at that very point, they stopped an Italian film crew, took them all out of the car and shot them dead.
God, dear me.
And took all their
That
stuff.
very same checkpoint?
That very same checkpoint.
Wow, that is scary.
Yeah.
That is terrible.
That's the scariest thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, my second one, believe it or not, is of a much more domestic nature. When my little nephew Tom, he's not little anymore, obviously.
This
he's
is the
4
thug
now.
Tom,
Well,
as
not
he's
the
now
thug.
known.
I told you the funny
joking.
story about picking people up and throwing them over
Yeah.
hedges. That was apocryphal, I think.
Okay.
But I was put in charge of Tom at my other sister's house.
Oh, yeah.
So Tom is the son of my sister Jill.
Oh, what's a babysitting duty?
Babysitting duties in Kingswood, whilst my 2 sisters went shopping, and I was put in charge of Tom. I don't know where my niece Karen was. She might have gone with her mum because she was a bit older. And the thing is, it was summer's day, so all the doors in the house were open. But we were in the back garden.
Yeah.
We were playing in the back garden.
Right.
And the usual thing happened. I sat down for a minute, you
Yeah.
know, and Tom's running around wearing me out. And I looked up and I thought, that's funny, where's Tom gone? Oh, he's gone in the house.
Right.
So I go in the house, no Tom. So I go
dear.
upstairs, Tom, where are you? So I come down, I go in the front garden, Tom, where are you?
Right.
I've never felt such a sense of dread and panic.
It's awful.
So I go down the driveway to the end onto the,
And there's a road there, presumably.
Well, yeah, but it's only it's called a wood. It's a wooden copse. So it's a little cul-de-sac road. Got onto that road, no sign. Went to the main road, but it's not a main road as in traffic road.
Right.
The main road into the estate.
Okay.
And by this time, I was panic-stricken.
You must have been petrified.
I was utterly petrified. I thought, what on earth could have happened? Has he been knocked down? Has he been kidnapped? Or whatever? And I started walking, and there were tears in my eyes. I mean, I
can imagine.
I was that, I don't know why I was...
Well, it's bad enough if it's your own child. If
That's
it's somebody
right.
else's,
Yeah.
actually, in a way, it's worse, isn't it?
Well, I thought... And I walked about 50 yards, and then all of a sudden, Tom's little head popped out of the hedge. So 20 yards
hiding.
in front of me.
Right.
He'd run away to hide.
Yeah.
And I've never been so relieved in my life.
I bet.
But the sense of dread, I'll never forget that sense of dread.
Yeah.
That was even more frightening than thinking you were about to be bombed.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It really was.
Yes, no,
Terrible.
I think I can absolutely go along with that.
Yeah.
I've got a couple. I think we're only going to have time now for me to tell one
Okay,
more, though,
yeah.
because we're
Go
only
on,
out of time. And this was another story about when I was in America, actually.
Yes.
And I was working with that photographer called Harry Siskind.
Yeah,
who
Harry,
you might
yeah.
remember, based in Florida. We had to go to a place in Mississippi, quite near, I think it was quite near Memphis.
Yes.
But the story revolved around a guy who had been exposed to the National Enquirer as living with his mother.
Right.
In the biblical sense, living with
dear.
his mother, right? And people will give a person in America a name if they do that kind of thing,
Yes,
right?
that's
Which
right.
is a name that obviously we can't repeat
No, exactly.
on this family show.
Yeah.
But we had turned up in this place which was absolutely hideous, like one of these public projects.
Yeah.
And there were a bunch of guys playing basketball out front. The scorched earth was just brown and dusty and muddy and horrible. It was a really hot day.
Yeah.
And we went and knocked on the door, and there was no answer. And we went away, came back.
Were
knocked on
your,
the door a
were
few
your
times.
sensitivities already fluttering?
Well, my sensitivities were a bit fluttering because it was clearly quite a rough area.
Yes,
Quite a
exactly.
rough neighbourhood.
Yeah.
This guy was white and his mother was white, but the guys who were outside were black and they're playing basketball. And we decided to ask them if they knew this guy. And they said that they did. And we said, do you know that this is the same guy that's in this story? And they went mad and just went, no. That's the guy, and they went mad. And so we said, well, we're going to try and get him out of the apartment. So we want you to come and help us. So they came and started battering on the door, calling him this name, which of course...
but they presumably were then going to inflict physical violence on him.
No, they weren't going to. No, but we just wanted to get him out. A bit like your story about the photographer.
sure.
We wanted a picture of this guy,
Sure.
right? Eventually, he got so worked up, this guy, he started shouting from inside. He's like, you people get away from my door, or I'm going to kill somebody. And eventually, he opened the door, and I was standing right in front of it, and he had a shotgun pointed right at me.
Andy?
And was like, if you people don't leave me alone, I'm going to shoot someone. And I was like, ah!
Yeah.
And I just got out of the way and just never went back.
I don't blame you.
No, that was
Yeah.
quite frightening.
Yeah, did a runner, so to speak.
Exactly.
That's right.
That was listography.
Yeah.
This is Talk Radio.
Certainly was.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
People are strange when you're a stranger. Faces look ugly when you're
Tonight
alone.
from 10 is the Late Night Alternative with Ian Lee. Join Ian, the undisputed king of late night radio, and his eclectic callers for some after dark mischief.
Absolutely right. 10 o'clock tonight after James Whale, the Whale, join in for the show that is like no other.
It is like no others.
No,
Very
have
good,
you
the
sorted
Ian Lee
out that
show.
app?
Yeah, funnily enough, just as we were preparing to come back there, I managed to finally work out how to do this, right? I've
Right.
taken a picture of you.
Yes.
You put your jacket on.
Yes.
And that horrible shirt you're wearing underneath, right?
What do you mean a horrible shirt? This is a quality shirt.
Quality shirt. Now, what it doesn't tell me is what clothes you're actually wearing, but what it does tell me is where I can buy similar clothes.
Okay.
But these look an awful lot nicer than what you've got on.
Excuse me, that means I've got quality clothes.
according-
Tell me what the quality clothes are.
The dinner. If you want to buy a dinner jacket, you can get something similar for £62 from French Connection.
What?
It
How
says
much?
62 quid.
For a dinner jacket?
Yeah.
That's cheap trash.
Cheap trash.
Yeah, I'd pay £200 for a dinner jacket.
A skinny suit jacket from Only and Sons will set you back 80 quid.
80 quid, yeah, all right. Not
both
bad
these
for a
people all
lovely
look a lot
jacket.
better than you. £80 for another skinny. See, they're all skinny jackets.
Yeah, but
these
mine's
days.
not skinny.
Yours is definitely not skinny.
Mine is
how about,
unskinny.
how about this for cheap? You can get a River Island jersey blazer for 49 quid.
That's all right.
That's well. How is the other one cheap trash if it's only 80?
Well, because that's a blazer, and a blazer doesn't have flaps over its pockets and that kind of stuff. It's like a summery cloak, which I wear once or twice.
You get a wool mix blue skinny suit jacket for 33 quid from River Island.
Rubbish.
Wouldn't
wash my car with it.
Only and Sons as well. Hart Hollywood. It's not exactly any massive names here, is it? Assos.
Well, it's not terribly accurate then, is it, really?
Noose and Monkey super skinny
See,
tuxedo jacket.
I thought it was going to say, right...
I thought it was going to say, as I said to you, I mean, either, Oxfam or whatever it was.
I mean, I'll be perfectly
honest.
George
and Asda.
I'll be perfectly honest. No, the suit jacket I'm wearing today, it's not a suit jacket, it's a jacket I bought from I was going to say Tesco's.
Tesco's?
From Marks and Spencer's, because
Okay.
it's what I call a working jacket.
Uh-huh.
And when I have to string my bag around my shoulder with all my journals and things in it, you don't want to wear an expensive suit, do you? So I think it cost about 85 quid.
Really?
Which is great, And
Well, according to this, you could get a number 8 Savile Row overcoat, which would look a bit like it, for 100 quid. That's cheap for a coat, isn't it?
It's very cheap for a coat indeed.
Must be made of paper.
But I mean, it's let me down a bit. That it should have identified this shirt as a quality shirt from.
Well, maybe I have to do a different picture of the shirt.
From where's it from now?
Isn't it from Pierre Cardin?
No, it's not. It's not Pierre Cardin shirt.
Sports
It's
Direct.
quality. It's from somewhere like those places
Ben
on railway
Sherman?
stations, that sell. Great
Oh, what, you mean the ones that your mate Gary Lineker advertises?
Is it?
Thomas Lewin.
It's not Anheuser-Busch. That's a brewery.
Anheuser-Busch?
Yeah, that's a brewery.
A brewery from St. Louis, Mississippi.
That's right, but it sounds something like that.
St. Louis, Missouri, actually.
You know what I mean? The Abercrombie
and Fitch?
Abercrombie and
No.
Fitch. That's where I got it from.
No way.
I did.
They don't make things in Abercrombie and Fitch your size.
They certainly do.
Absolutely rubbish.
Listen, did I tell you, by the way, because I meant to mention this to you earlier, do you know it's National Lion Day today? No, it's World Lion Day.
Lying Day?
World Lion.
Lion. I thought you meant lying.
As in the Lion King.
As in you're a liar.
No,
so it'd be perfect for you.
No.
Every day's National Liar Day for you.
Oh, you idiot. It's World Lion Day, okay?
Lion. Well, that would be appropriate, wouldn't it? Because if you're a Leo, a Leo the lion, you would have your birthday
and
today.
It's Ray, they've established a World Lion Day because, in fact...
Why?
I tell you, in the last 30 years, the number of lions in Africa has halved. There are now only 34,000.
Right.
There's that many, actually.
Well, hang on. Yesterday you were telling us that because there's now 30,000 polar bears in the world, you have to start shooting them.
Yeah, but they're all in the Arctic.
Well, it doesn't matter. Where are all the lions?
Most of them are in Tanzania.
Right.
The country with the most lions is Tanzania.
Mm-hmm.
The other countries who have them are Botswana, South Africa, Kenya, Zambia, and Zimbabwe.
They have mountain lions in America, don't they?
Cougars?
No. Mountain lions?
No, I think the same thing. A mountain lion
Well,
and cougar is the same thing.
Is it?
It is, yeah.
Are you
definitely.
sure?
Yeah, because they have big teeth.
What about a puma?
Puma's black.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, mountain lions are brown.
I know that.
Yes, okay.
But what about leopards?
Well, leopards have spots.
They do. They
And
don't
never
change them either.
That's right. Now, the other thing I was going to tell you was, and this is sensational.
There must be other places in the world that have lions, surely.
No, that's where that's
They're
the only
only
place
in
they are.
Africa?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yes, of course I'm sure. I'm certain. Now, did you know that lions are very inferior in size to tigers?
I did know that tigers are bigger.
Yeah, tigers are bigger than lions. Tigers can weigh 850 pounds. The average weight of a lion is 500.
Right.
But the most interesting thing is a lion's roar can be heard 5 miles away.
Well, you were in Kruger National Park, weren't
I was,
you?
yeah.
Did you not see any there?
Yeah, I did, I think, because I got a certificate saying I'd seen the big four.
Big four?
The big four is rhino, elephant, giraffe, and...
Lion?
Lion.
Really? Are you sure?
Big 5, tiger as well. Big 5. Big 6, big 6. White rhino.
I
We saw a white rhino.
I thought, by the
6.
way, what?
Yeah, big 6.
6. Big 6 sounds better, actually.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I thought you were telling me earlier there was some kind of runaway elephant going there.
There is. There's a crazy elephant. I shouldn't be laughing because it's already trampled 15 people to death.
Yeah.
But there's this crazy elephant that's gone on
As opposed to trampling them to what? Near death.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. But this rogue elephant has obviously...
Has he got a name?
Something. No.
Sure,
because,
I mean,
because
can you
it's
imagine?
a wild elephant.
Yeah, but
it's
you remember
not
in
like a pet elephant.
Yeah, but you remember the days when we were both in newspapers, right? And whenever there was a story like this, we always had to give the thing a name.
Yeah, that's
you
right.
always have to give, have to call it Nelly the elephant or
Yeah,
something.
that's right, yeah, or Zumba.
Or
Zumba the elephant.
something ridiculous,
been trampling people to death.
Like Blackie the donkey. Remember that story?
Yeah. It happened every year, didn't
Yeah.
it? Kidnap the
Well,
donkey
somebody
so he
had to
can't
go
be
and-
thrown off the
somebody
tower.
had to go and save the donkey
Yeah,
in
every year.
Spanish village.
Yeah, because
where they like throwing it off the top of a ladder.
They had this ridiculous sort of local custom, didn't they? Where every sort of October.
Marta's nodding in there.
It's true.
She must remember it.
No, every October when the orange crop came in or something,
Yeah.
they made a sacrifice to the orange crop. So they took
Well,
a
they
donkey.
claimed that the donkey didn't get hurt. No, the donkey didn't
Well,
die.
they threw it off like a 60-foot tower. Unless the donkey was very good at sort of trampolining
Yeah.
or something.
No, they threw it into a swimming pool, didn't they?
No, they threw it onto the ground
No,
below.
they threw it into a swimming pool, I'm sure.
They didn't throw it into a swimming pool. Supposing the donkey missed, so they missed the swimming
Well,
pool.
they don't miss, do you?
But anyway, the thing is, I remember one year we went out there to rescue it.
Yes.
I sent people out there to rescue it, and
Right.
then we had to
Well,
fire
there was a
some
huge
people
fight,
because-
wasn't it? A bun fight.
Yeah,
because
because
the Daily Star guy thought
That's
he
right,
had it.
yeah.
And then the Sun guy thought he had it.
That's right, yeah.
And people were getting fired for not bringing this
That's
donkey
right,
back.
not bringing the donkey back and saving it, so
Unbelievable.
they could say we saved Blackie the donkey.
Yeah. So
Just-
where is this? By the way, there are lions in India, just so that you know.
No, there aren't.
There are. There are lions in India.
Hang on. I'm checking this.
You don't
Country
have
with
to
the
check
most
it.
lions is Tanzania.
Yeah.
Uh,
well, that's not the same as saying the country only with the lions.
lions in
There
India.
are lions in India, I promise you.
No.
Yes, there are.
The only things in India are tigers.
But they're also
Tiger,
lions.
tiger, burning bright
Yes.
in the jungle of the night.
No.
Now that's
in the
Rudyard,
forest.
in the forest of the night.
Yeah.
Now that's Rudyard Kipling,
Yeah.
who lived in India.
That's right.
So,
He also lived in Sussex, by the way.
did he?
Yeah.
Okay,
I've been
that's
to his
good.
house.
Right, the next thing I can tell you is this.
What?
The most common name for a pub in Britain
What?
is...
The Lion Inn?
No, the Red Lion, you idiot. Right? And the...
I don't believe that.
Yes, it is.
Surely the Red Lion is not the most
Tis,
popular name for a
tis,
pub.
tis.
I can't even tell you where there's a pub called the Red Lion. Can you?
Yes, I can. In fact, on the Wirral,
I mean, I would have thought, say, the Green Man is the pub name that I see the most often.
you don't see old-fashioned pub names as much as you used to.
No, but in the country you do. You
Yeah,
know, I
you
drive
do.
around.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, I can tell you in the Wirral, and I reckon Beaky would back this up when I see him on Saturday.
Okay.
Certainly at a place called Great Sutton. I remember if you drove through Great Sutton, which is just one of the connecting villages all the way up the Wirral.
Oh, yeah.
Where
Hey,
the-
by the way, did you hear
Yeah.
about the Swan on the railways this morning?
No, what happened?
Well, David Spencer was doing it in the news, remember?
Oh, what happened?
Well, there was a Swan that apparently was delaying all the trains
Oh,
coming in
that's-
from Surrey.
Oh, really?
So were you not affected by that?
No, I wasn't. No, I wonder where that was. No,
Well, I don't know. It was somewhere affecting the Surrey train.
Could have been earlier. Could have been earlier than
Early.
Yeah, anyway, listen, getting back to it. Right, Red
Yeah.
Line is the most common name. White Line, 25th name.
What, for a pub?
For a pub.
The White Lion?
The
I've
White
never
Line.
seen that.
Yeah, I have. In Great Sutton,
Hmm.
the Red Line and the White Line were 100 yards apart.
How about the Cowardly Lion?
Why would you have the Cowardly Line?
Well, because the character in The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, is that the one?
Well, you've seen The Wizard of Oz, haven't you?
No.
You've never seen The Wizard of Oz?
No.
Are you joking?
No.
How
Yellow
can you
Brick
not
Road.
have, how
No.
can you not have seen The Wizard of Oz?
However, talking about fictional lines, C.S. Lewis's Great Line in his Narnia
Yeah.
book is named Asian.
Aslan.
Oh, sorry, Aslan, that's right. Yeah. I thought it was an eye with a dot on the top.
Was he an Asian lion?
Yeah, it's named
From
Aslan.
India.
After the Turkish word for...
Lion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got it in one.
Right.
And the other names of pubs with lions, the Golden Lion,
Golden Lion, yeah.
42nd.
How about is it Golden Lion Square?
Yes, there is a Golden Lion Square, isn't
Round the back of Fleet Street, isn't there?
it? It is,
Or am I thinking-
absolutely.
Isn't that where LBC used to be?
It is, and it's very close to that great pub,
The Cheshire Cheese.
Cheshire Cheese.
That's
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Which
Which I
doesn't-
don't think was very good.
No,
actually.
it wasn't actually.
Oh, it was a bit of a
bit,
jump.
bit touristy.
Yeah, I agree.
John Nicholson is here, though.
I live next to the Ten Bells pub in London.
The
where,
Ten Bells.
Where Jack the Ripper used to pick up his victims.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Where would that be? In Wapping?
No, it's Spitalfields.
Spitalfields. Oh, okay.
Spitalfield's a very trendy area, that.
Very trendy.
It is now. It wasn't what I bought.
No, I used to go there and play
So did you make a
football,
lot of
actually.
money on it?
Well, I don't know yet. I haven't sold it.
Oh, really? Okay.
But I bought the house derelict. It had no electricity or water or gas in it.
Oh, really?
Was you trying to make yourself feel at home from Scotland?
That's right, yeah. That's a bit
Blue
harsh,
Street.
isn't it? Yeah, I think I was going to say.
No, we were talking about Skye earlier on because
Oh,
apparently
yeah.
things are so bad there that the local cops are saying don't visit unless you've got a place to stay for the night.
Well, I know.
The
but
Isle of
it's-
Skye, by the way.
It's
we're
so
talking about.
it's so popular. Skye,
Yeah, it's
you know.
lovely, isn't it?
And people move up there as well.
Yes.
They sell big houses down here, and then they can afford to buy anything they want. And
Well, one of the things
they're
that
called
people-
they're called white settlers by
Yes,
the islanders.
That's it.
Called what?
Well,
White
Oh, the white
settlers.
settlers.
one of the things that you notice a lot of when you go to the Highlands of Scotland is how many English people are there.
Ah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
all the Scots have moved out.
Yeah.
Well, it's true, and every time you see a little stone cottage with peat smoke coming from the chimneys, you can be certain the person inside will be English.
That's right.
Because the locals all want PVC double glazing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly right. Now, you've got Alex Salmon coming on.
We do. Alex Salmon's got a sell-out show.
Has he?
At the Edinburgh Festival. Yes,
wow.
he has.
Has he turned his hand to comedy then?
Well, we'll have to wait and see.
What does he do in this show?
That's what I'm going to ask him. I think he's going to be telling stories and interviewing guests.
He's a great character.
Well, it's sort of an evening with Alex Salmon.
Exactly that.
Yeah, okay,
it's exactly that.
He's a great raconteur.
He's doing that. It's a sellout show.
Yeah.
And
give him my regards, by the way.
I will.
He may or may not remember me, but I suspect he will.
I'll pass that on.
He's a big racing fan, isn't he?
He is, and he sings as well, so he might be singing.
Sings?
I think this is the first time in more than...
Maybe you should get him on for your... well, he wouldn't be singing that, would he? He used to live in Lithgow, which is where I used to live.
That's beautiful. I was hoping we were going to hear more of that there.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, God, don't encourage him.
No, I felt the whiff of the Glens.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
And it's
not the Glens you're getting a whiff of.
Oh, Donald, where's your trousers? That's my favourite.
You're right. It's more Glenmorangie than the Glens, isn't it?
It is,
really?
absolutely.
You're not drinking today, I notice, or is it under the table?
We only did it once, you know. It's not a regular occurrence.
Every day, you know. Well, not until 4.
We're also going to be looking at lesbian and gay rights.
Okay.
Yeah.
With Nancy Clench.
Okay.
You guys, are you a couple, by the way?
We're not. No.
You're not.
No. But thank you for asking.
Not betrothed.
I just assumed because there's a wee spark.
Oh,
I
there
feel.
is. Yeah. A lot of people say that.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
I don't fancy him though. Is the thing.
Well, never say never.
Well, you know, it could get that desperate. It's always possible.
I suppose as you get older, you got to compromise.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Double your chances of a date on a Saturday night, as Woody Allen used to say.
Well, it could end up in like a Morecambe and Wise thing, just sharing a bed as pals.
Well, you'd have to
I wouldn't fancy that.
No, a very big bed for him and anybody else to get in it. I tell you.
Well, anyway, listen. Have a very good show. Enjoy
Thank you
yourself.
very much. Thank
John
you.
Nicholson is coming up very, very shortly, and of course, we'll be back tomorrow with a quiz on Singapore.
Yeah.
So you better do your homework.
Yes.
It is Friday tomorrow, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
This is my last day.
Is it?
Yeah. 'Cause
Oh,
Sam's back on Monday.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
He's been on his halls.
Well, hang on.
Well, I
so
hope
who's
you've
doing
enjoyed
tomorrow,
it.
Friday?
I don't know who's doing tomorrow. I'm doing Sunday.
Oh,
Yasmin Khan is doing it tomorrow. In case
Yasmin?
you're interested. Yes.
Okay,
so
that's
we'll
great.
have a handover with Yasmin Khan tomorrow.
Excellent.
Try and
Looking
remember her
forward to
name.
it. Yes, indeed.
Thank you. This is Talk Radio.
Over the shed to sky.